Book 16, Starmist Sea Chapter 1, Black Stone. The Amethyst Mountains were covered by that unfeeling, icy mist. Within the mountain hollow, Delia was currently seated quietly, her eyes closed. Today was as peaceful as always. "Delia, Bibi." Suddenly, a voice rang out. Delia, who had been quietly meditating, couldn't help but be startled. She immediately opened her eyes and turned to look over. Right now, Bibi's worried voice rang out as well. "Boss, why did you stop training? How is your Divine Earth clone doing? Did you succeed, or is it?" By the time Delia looked over, she saw that the sky blue-robed Linley, his original body, was already standing in front of her. "What's the situation?" Delia walked over, asking with concern. Linley felt a surge of warmth in his heart. Nodding, he said, "Everything is fine. Right now, my Divine Earth clone is on the way back, and will arrive soon." "Delia, Bibi, I'm sorry. I've made you worry during this period of time." Linley didn't know whether to laugh or to cry right now. He didn't know if he should say that he was lucky, or if he was unlucky. He had just been testing world walking for the first time when he had encountered the juvenile amethyst beast. However, because of this, his power had increased greatly. Indeed, blessings and disasters could be hard to differentiate. Suddenly, footsteps rang out from afar. It was Olivier. "Linley, you successfully escaped, right? I can tell just by the look on your face." Olivier laughed loudly. Linley nodded slightly. "Boss, you successfully escaped. This is a cause for celebration. Although we might be stuck here a very long time and need to be a bit sparing with the wine, today, we absolutely still have to celebrate this joyous occasion." With a flip of his hand, Bibi retrieved several bottles of fine wine. Wine was extremely precious in the Amethyst Mountains. Within the Amethyst Mountains, perhaps not even hundreds of millions of inkstones would be enough to trade for a single bottle of wine. After all, in the Amethyst Mountains, harvesting amethysts was simply too easy. Wine, on the other hand, was gone after being drunk. The Amethyst Mountains didn't have any materials that could be used for making wine. "Haha, today, drink as much as you like." Linley laughed loudly. "Even if we drink up all the wine we have, it doesn't matter." Bibi immediately stared. "Boss, you can be happy, but you can't be so wasteful." Olivier was somewhat astonished as well. Delia looked suspiciously at Linley, asking, "Linley, are you preparing to abstain from alcohol?" "Haha," laughing, Linley shook his head. "That's not it. It's because I've already found a method by which I can take you all out from these Amethyst Mountains." "Leave the Amethyst Mountains?" Bibi, Delia, and Olivier couldn't help but be stunned. After so many years, nobody who had entered the Amethyst Mountains had been able to leave on their own. Olivier and the others had tested it out as well, but weren't able to leave the Amethyst Mountains at all. But Linley was now saying. Delia, Bibi, and Olivier knew what sort of person Linley was. They knew that Linley wouldn't lie. But leaving the Amethyst Mountains, this was simply too unbelievable. "Boss, you tellin' the truth?" Bibi was filled with doubts, and he asked again. "Linley, you'd better not be making me happy for nothing." Olivier chuckled, but his eyes stared hard at Linley with a hint of expectation in them. If anyone else had said this, Olivier probably wouldn't even pay them any mind, but it was Linley who said this. Linley wasn't the sort of person to lie. "Linley, you have a way to deal with that astonishing gravity." Delia went straight to the heart of the matter. If one wanted to leave the Amethyst Mountains, first, one had to deal with that astonishing gravity. The gravity of the Amethyst Mountains was something which not even most high gods could nullify while flying. "Don't worry. If I said we can leave, that means we can leave," Linley said with absolute certainty. Bibi, Delia, and Olivier all had a hint of excitement on their faces. "Boss, how would we leave?" Bibi asked. Linley smiled. "Fine. I'll give you a demonstration, as otherwise, you probably wouldn't believe it." Linley's original body was capable of borrowing divine power from his divine body. Immediately, Linley's body began to circulate with a surge of divine earth power, and he immediately activated it based on the insights he had gained. Geomagnetic ripples spread out from Linley's legs, stretching out into the earth. Crackle! At the same time, the ground within 100 meters began to ripple strangely. Linley smiled as he looked at Delia, Bibi, and Olivier. "What do you think?" "Huh?" Delia and the others were astonished. To their amazement, they discovered that the effect their body suffered from the astonishing gravitational force of the Amethyst Mountains had been weakened by more than 90%. Although the remaining amount of gravity pull was considerable, it was no longer enough to prevent the three of them from flying. Delia, Bibi, and Olivier easily hovered up from the ground. "Linley, what's this?" Olivier couldn't help but find this unbelievable. "Right." Bibi's face was filled with astonishment. "Garland and Jared had told me that even if one mastered gravitational space, it would be useless here in the Amethyst Mountains. Up till now, nobody has been able to nullify the gravitational force like you. Although some experts were powerful enough to fly despite the pull of gravity, that was just relying on pure power, unlike Linley who was using profound mysteries. Do you believe me now?" Linley didn't explain further. "I believe you, I believe you." Oliver's face was covered with delight, the many years of unhappiness all washed away. "Boss, what about that strange wind region?" Bibi asked hurriedly. That chaotic region was the true culprit behind so many experts being trapped here. Linley laughed calmly. "No need to ask. When we leave, I'll deal with it." Linley still remembered clearly how the juvenile amethyst beast, Rice Gem, had said that in the area of the strange wind sound, by relying on this black stone, he would be able to pass through it. "I have to spend some time giving a thorough review of this black stone," Linley said quietly to himself. After exiting the cave, Linley had been in a hurry to come back, and hadn't analyzed the black stone. However, even that cursory glance he had given it had shown that the black stone had astonishing aspects to it. In particular, it held within it an aura that made one's heart tremble, and the spiritual energy within it constantly changed. All of these things attracted Linley's interest. "But of course, I still need to spend some time preparing, and get a thorough understanding of the method we'll use to leave." Linley laughed. "The Amethyst Mountains are very safe. In the infernal realm, it's very, very rare to find such a safe training area. Indeed, aside from the flaws of the white fog here limiting visibility to 100 meters, the astonishing gravity, and the boring, dull lifestyle, in the Amethyst Mountains, aside from the day of the fog wave, it really is quite safe in here." Olivier nodded as well. Right at this moment, the returning divine earth clone finally sprouted out from the stone, fusing into Linley's original body. Delia and Bibi, upon seeing this, finally let out sighs of relief. "Haha, boss, let's celebrate." Bibi, having received 2 pieces of good news in a row, was naturally in an excellent mood. After Linley's group of 4 celebrated, Linley began to focus on his analysis of the black stone. This black stone contains within it an earth-type aura, and it also has a spiritual aura. It really is odd. Linley carefully inspected the black stone, his heart filled with questions, and then he laughed. Perhaps the black stone has some connection to amethysts. Amethyst top stones were naturally earth-style. However, amethysts contain spiritual energy as well. This was quite similar to the black stone. Only, the aura of the spiritual energy in this black stone causes one's heart to tremble, Linley said to himself. The black stone also held within it those 108 constantly fluctuating spiritual energy auras. These 108 spiritual energy auras were moving into constantly changing configurations, causing Linley to feel utterly delighted. The configurations he himself had developed thus far were just the basics. But within the black stone, the naturally transforming configurations were on a deeper level. Linley immediately calmed down and began to analyze the methods by which one would use this gravitational space technique. Although seemingly simple, controlling it for one's own use was very complicated. It was much like how Linley had seen those 108 spikes on the back of the juvenile amethyst beast, but truly understanding the configuration had required a very long amount of time. Right now, this was the difficulty which he faced. However, Linley was absorbed by it. When boss trains like this, he pays no attention to time at all. BB muttered, not for the first time. In fact, he had complained like this innumerable times. Delia laughed and glanced at him. BB, calm down and train. It's just been 20 years. It went by in a flash. Look at Olivier. As soon as he started meditating, he hasn't woken up a single time. If you are so impatient, when will you be able to make a breakthrough? BB pouted but didn't speak. Hey. BB's eyes suddenly lit up. The boss woke up. Delia hurriedly turned to look towards where Linley was seated in meditation. Right now, Linley's eyes were open, and his face was all smiles. So the black stone can even be used in such a manner. I truly am a fool. Linley turned and urged, BB, come over. What for? BB didn't quite understand. Get a feel for my gravitational space. Linley said. BB raised his head, then immediately walked over. Disdainfully, he said, gravitational space? Give it your best shot. I, BB, have a really powerful body. Your gravitational space won't be able to harm me, no matter how powerful it is. BB was fully confident, and indeed, precisely because of his tough body, Linley had asked him to come. Get ready. Linley immediately began to use it. Crackle. Geomagnetic ripples spread out from Linley's feet, spreading out through the earth and continuously transforming from within it. The strange thing was, the black stone was currently floating within Linley's sea of consciousness, and the 108 rays of spiritual energy within the black stone were moving in exactly the same manner as the geomagnetic ripples. It was as though the two were moving in accord. Haha, the gravity is quite something, but it's nothing to me. BB said delightedly, but suddenly, BB's face changed. He frantically shook his head. Boss, stop playing around. My head feels miserable. Linley immediately halted. How does that feel? Linley laughed while looking at him. This was all as Linley had predicted it would be. BB stared at Linley in surprise. Boss, just now, my head felt so dizzy. That feeling was just like how when I heard the strange wind sound in the fog sea. It was that sort of feeling. My head felt extremely miserable. How'd you do it? BB somewhat didn't dare to believe it. This is the effect of a treasure I received. Linley explained. Actually, in the later stages of his analysis of the black stone, Linley had discovered this. It was at this point of the analysis that Linley realized why the juvenile amethyst beast had said that with this black stone, he wouldn't have to worry about the influence of the strange wind sound. It was because the special effect of the strange wind sound and the sole effect of the black stone were identical. Linley suspected. Perhaps, within these amethyst mountains, there is an extremely large black stone, capable of impacting and spreading out to a range of hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Linley guessed. Linley, what are you testing out? Delia walked over as well. BB turned his head and grinned. Delia, the boss is now extremely powerful, and I even dare say that we definitely won't have any problems in leaving the Amethyst Mountains. After having tasted this technique, BB was now completely confident in Linley. Delia's eyes lit up. Walking over to Linley, she said, "Linley, shall we head out now?" Linley frowned slightly. "No rush. Delia, the infernal realm has too many dangers hidden within it. We should wait until we are a bit stronger before heading out. Right now, I've only fused 2 types of profound mysteries. However, I am confident that I should be able to fuse 3 types of profound mysteries very soon." Fuse 3 types. Delia and Bibi were both surprised. There were quite a few experts who had fused 2 types of profound mysteries, but the number who had fused 3 was extremely low. It must be understood that many 6-star fiends had only fused 3 types of profound mysteries. As for fusing 4, even Elkin, the 7-star fiend, had only fused 4. With each increase in level, the power would increase tenfold as well. The difficulty, as well, would also increase exponentially. For example, Linley had fused the throbbing pulse of the world and the gravitational space. To fuse a 3rd type of profound mystery, he would have to have the 3rd profound mystery find a joining location for both of the other 2 types of profound mysteries, which would be the foundation for the fusing. Only then would fusing become possible. Finding the joining location, however, was extremely difficult. For example, Linley had spent a long time looking for a joining point between the throbbing pulse of the world and the gravitational space without success and without any breakthroughs. Afterwards, he had used the essence of the earth to have these 2 types of profound mysteries find a joining point. I'm confident in being able to fuse 3 profound mysteries, but 4. Linley couldn't help but think of the world walking technique. Up till now, he hadn't had a single insight into how he would fuse world walking with any of the other 3 profound mysteries. To fuse 4 profound mysteries, he would at least have to begin fusing world walking with the other 3 profound mysteries. But he hadn't even found a joining point. How could he then fuse it with the other 3? Most likely, even after spending 10,000 years, he still wouldn't be able to do it. The higher I climb, the harder it becomes. Linley understood. Book 16, Starmist C Chapter 2, 10 Years of Harvesting. The essence of the earth had been fused with the throbbing pulse of the world long ago, and had been partially fused with the gravitational space. At present, to fuse these 3 profound mysteries into one, it could be said to be just a matter of time. Linley naturally wouldn't choose to leave first. The Amethyst Mountains were as calm as always. As the calm days passed, Linley's understanding of the laws of the earth gradually increased, and the degree of fusion of the 3 types of profound mysteries constantly increased as well. Time silently flowed onwards, and in the blink of an eye, another 120 years passed. On the surface of the stone, Linley was seated in the meditative position, his body covered by a layer of dust. Suddenly, a surge of energy swirled around his body, sweeping away the dust. Just a little bit more, and the 3 profound mysteries will be fused. Linley opened his eyes and let out a low sigh. Pausing his training, he said, "A bottleneck is hard to break through. Once I am stuck at the final bottleneck, who knows how long it will take." Fusing profound mysteries have 2 critical points. The first is finding the joining point, and the second is the final bottleneck. The amount of time needed for these 2 is completely unpredictable. Despite that, however, Linley was still in quite a good mood. He was just a tiny step away from fusing these 3 profound mysteries, and his power was now 5 or 6 times that of the past, when he had only fused 2 profound mysteries. Originally, when escorting Salomon and his treasure, we had been trapped in that castle of sand. Now, I'm going to create a blackstone prison of my own. Linley smiled, then willed it. Instantly. With Linley at the center, divine power surged forth in the area with a circumference of 100 meters. A large amount of earth elemental essence coalesced, instantly forming a black, completely sealed prison. Not a hint of sunlight could be seen from within the prison, and nothing could be seen at all. At the same time, within this prison, there was an extremely strong gravity. Compared to the past, when Linley had only fused 2 profound mysteries, the power of the gravity now was actually several times greater. Humph. Even a high god who falls into this most likely won't even be able to run out from within it. Linley was very confident. Their speed will be lessened, but my speed won't be influenced at all. I can easily kill that high god. Blackstone Prison. A prison formed as the result of the fusion of the throbbing pulse of the world, the gravitational space, and the essence of the earth profound mysteries, while using the mysterious priceless treasure, the black stone, as the nucleus. Within this prison, the trapped person would suffer tremendously powerful gravitational bindings, while at the same time the soul would be impacted as well. The person would be able to use less than a tenth of his total strength. Within this region, Linley definitely could deal with his opponents. Unfortunately, the 3 profound mysteries haven't been completely fused. Linley said to himself. Linley knew very well that given how hard it was to train in the laws, to successfully fuse 4 profound mysteries would take countless years. What he was currently training in now would be, at this point in time, his greatest asset when roaming the infernal realm. Logically speaking, the Azuras of the infernal realm should have fused 5 types of profound mysteries. As for 7 Starfiends, most of them have fused 4 profound mysteries. Only a very few have fused 5 profound mysteries. Generally speaking, 6 Starfiends have fused 3 types. Linley hypothesized. Ordinary high gods were 4 Starfiends. After fusing 2 profound mysteries, they would generally be capable of becoming 5 Starfiends. But of course, this wasn't absolute. This was just a generality. Although I'm only one step off from completely fusing 3 profound mysteries, the effect of my Blackstone prison should be greater than that of 4 fused profound mysteries. Linley knew very well that the reason why this technique was so powerful was primarily because of the strange way in which it was used. This was the way in which the juvenile amethyst beast used gravitational space. 108 geomagnetic rays of force, when working together, could actually increase the former upper limits over 100-fold. When combined with the black stone and its support, the power of this technique would definitely doom most high gods who encountered it. In normal circumstances, high gods could easily kill gods, precisely because they were able to rely on their god realm as well as their naturally stronger souls. Only, with regards to the soul, Linley had a sovereign soul-protecting artifact. As for the binding power of a god realm, Linley's gravitational space had an even greater binding power. Generally speaking, any high gods who encountered Linley would indeed be doomed. Actually, this made sense. He had the black stone, the soul-protecting sovereign artifact, and was very nearly at the point of fusing 3 profound mysteries. Although his god-level divine power was rather weak, the 3 advantages listed above were simply too strong. Most high gods definitely wouldn't be a match. Linley, you are finally prepared to head out. Olivier had waited a long time for this day. Sorry. Linley laughed. And then, Linley glanced at the nearby Delia and Bibi. Everyone, prepare yourselves. As he spoke, Linley's body began to circulate with an earthen yellow light, and then a 10-meter-long sphere of earthen light emanated out, surrounding Linley and the group of 4 within it, levitating. A gravitational space didn't have to be flat, it could be made into a sphere. However, this was something Linley had accomplished only after centuries of research. Let's go. Within the gravitational space, Linley easily countered the impact of that gravitational pull. Linley's group of 4 immediately flew into the air. When we came, the gravity was so powerful. But now that we are leaving, I can't feel any gravity at all. Olivier couldn't help but glance at Linley. Sighing, he said, Linley, of the experts of the Yulan continent who came to the infernal plane, I imagine there are very few as powerful as you. Olivier couldn't help but be impressed by Linley. They flew into the white fog ahead of them. Linley's group of 4 constantly rose upwards, higher into the air. We've already left the region of powerful gravity. Linley had been continuously controlling the gravitational sphere. Naturally, he could sense the changes in gravity outside. We're about to immediately enter the region of that strange wind sounds, that chaotic area. Linley reminded everyone. Delia and Olivier were very careful, because their soul defenses weren't very strong. Whoosh! Whoosh! That wind sound rang out again. Immediately, Bibi frowned, while Delia and Olivier began to feel their heads going dizzy. Linley immediately activated the black stone, and his own spiritual energy emanated out from within the black stone, filling the entire gravitational space sphere. So it really is the same. Linley had a smile on his face. Right now, he could easily sense the principles behind the wind sound causing the soul to grow dizzy. Actually, it wasn't the wind, it was a sort of strange spiritual energy ripple. Even when it entered the body through the ears, it would still be transmitted straight through to the sea of consciousness. Linley shut out that strange wind sound, and Delia along with the others felt much better. We'll definitely be able to leave now. Olivier was incomparably excited. After seeing Linley shut out that strange wind sound, he was completely sure of it now. It must be understood that this chaotic region with this strange wind sound was a place which even high gods found difficult to deal with. In the chaotic area, Linley's group of 4 was completely unaffected. Naturally, they headed straight through. Moments later, I see the outside world. Bibi said in surprised delight. Me too. Linley immediately dispersed the gravitational space. At this moment, not too far away from Linley, a group of people were standing aloft in mid-air, clearly waiting for amethysts to fly out. Ah, 2 amethysts. From afar, an excited cry could be heard. Haha, I didn't expect that after being here for just half a month, you would be able to get 2 amethysts. Let's go have a good celebration. From afar, some idle chatter could be heard. Linley's group of 4 looked at each other and laughed. These words were very familiar to each other. They were words commonly heard here in the Fog Sea. They had finally escaped. We really did come out. Bibi's face was full of delight. Hey, the 4 of you, be careful. Don't go too deep into the Fog Sea. I saw that the 4 of you seemed to have come from rather deep within. You have got to be careful. A flying god warned Linley's group of 4. If you go past the safe zone, you'll never be able to leave again. We know. Linley chuckled in response. Of course they knew the danger. They themselves really had in fact been trapped within. Let's go. Linley's group of 4 felt quite joyful. And they immediately flew out of the borders of the Fog Sea. Linley, when we leave, each of us should pay 3 amethysts. Let's not return the writ. Delia said through divine sense. Why? Bibi asked. Linley was puzzled as well, but then he immediately understood. Delia explained through her divine sense, I'm worried that after each fog wave, the 18 clans will change to a different type of writ. If we take out our writ of passage, they might very well know that we entered during the previous fog wave, and will definitely suspect that we came out from within the Amethyst Mountains. Once we are discovered, we'll be in for a great deal of trouble. Bibi and Olivier immediately understood. Right. This was very possible. If we're discovered, we really will be doomed. Linley could imagine it. It must be understood that in the Amethyst Mountains, acquiring amethysts was simply too easy. It was like picking money off the ground. Linley's group of 4 immediately flew towards the outside perimeter, and instantly, 2 black-robed men went to greet them. One of them glanced at Delia in surprise, especially upon seeing the fiend medallion on Delia's chest. This was a high god fiend. It was extremely rare for them to see a high god fiend enter the Fog Sea to harvest amethysts. Linley couldn't help but feel startled. The 4 of you, where are your writs of passage? One of the black-robed staff members said. We entered without buying them. Bibi replied. Oh. The black-robed man replied very naturally, "Same rules as always. 3 amethysts each, 12 total for 4 of you." With a flip of her hand, Delia produced 5 amethysts while saying, "My luck was a bit better than yours, so I'll pay 5 amethysts. How about you 3? Bibi, this time, you had pretty good luck as well, right? You got quite a few amethysts, I believe." "Oh, I'll pay the other 7. Bibi chortled as he withdrew 7 amethysts. Accepting the 12 amethysts, the 2 black-robed figures glanced at Delia in puzzlement, and then nodded. "You can leave." Clearly, the black-robed men didn't want to make too much of a fuss. Linley's group of 4 laughed and immediately flew away, while from behind them came the sound of the 2 black-robed men chatting. "That high god fiend entered to harvest amethysts as well. What's wrong with her? Who knows? Perhaps that woman reached the high god level while harvesting amethysts." "Oh, right, that's very possible. It's only been a few centuries since the fog wave, but that skinny kid had really good luck. He was actually able to produce 7 amethysts." Linley's group heard these words as they traveled farther away. From afar, Linley's group took out their metallic life form and entered it, and it transformed into a ray of black light, quickly disappearing into the eastern horizons. Within the metallic life form. "Haha, we're rich, we're rich," Bibi called out excitedly. "How so?" Linley laughed as he looked at Bibi. "Boss, 100 years ago, you said that you had a way to let us leave the Amethyst Mountains, right?" "Right, so what?" Linley looked at Bibi in puzzlement. "Since I knew we were going to leave, I began to go harvest those amethysts like mad." Bibi laughed delightedly. "Boss, you don't know this, but I couldn't settle down and focus on training, so I went to harvest amethysts. At a single one of those demonic amethyst layers, in a single day, I was easily able to acquire millions of amethysts. I was harvesting for 10 full years. Millions of amethysts every day for 10 years? How many do you have?" Linley, Delia, and Olivier were all shocked. "Heh, can't you calculate it for yourself?" Bibi was extremely delighted with himself. In the Amethyst Mountains, amethysts are worthless, but in other places, they are quite valuable. Linley didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. All of them knew this logic. However, Linley, Delia, and Olivier had only gone to harvest some amethysts earlier on, and afterwards they had focused on their training. Only Bibi, bored, would go harvest so many amethysts. But 10 years of harvesting? This number was simply too extravagant. On this trip, they no longer encountered any dangers, and Linley's group constantly advanced. The infernal realm really was incomparably vast. From the Amethyst Mountains to the Blue Maple City of the Rainbow Prefecture took Linley's team 8 full years of time. "We're here at Blue Maple City," Bibi celebrated. All 4 of them in the metallic life form were overjoyed. "We finally arrived." Looking through the translucent metal and seeing the beautiful, distant, ancient Blue Maple City, Linley felt a surge of joy. On this trip over, they experienced countless dangers, and only now had they arrived at the Blue Maple City of the Rainbow Prefecture. Now that they had arrived at Blue Maple City, they could begin their journey through the Starmist Sea. After passing through the Starmist Sea, they would be at the place where Linley's ancestors resided. The Blood Ridge Continent. Book 16, Starmist Sea Chapter 3, Saturation. Rainbow Prefecture. Blue Maple City. This was at the southeasternmost point of the entire Redbud continent. From Blue Maple City, one only would have to fly a few moments before reaching the borders of the vast, boundless Starmist Sea. Everyone headed from the Redbud continent towards the Jade Float continent of the east or the Blood Ridge continent of the southeast would primarily travel through here, as Blue Maple City was the closest location. Some major trading guilds would also have branches here, resulting in Blue Maple City being far more bustling and active than any of the other cities in the Redbud continent. The gates of Blue Maple City actually have Redbud Army soldiers standing on duty. How strange. Olivier laughed calmly in praise. At this moment, Linley's group of 4 had already entered Blue Maple City and were walking along the roads of Blue Maple City. Blue Maple City is an extremely developed and bustling city. Trade has caused many merchants' guilds to depart from this location. There are also many experts who wish to go to other continents who set out from here as well. It makes sense for some Redbud Army soldiers to be stationed at such an important location, Linley said, while at the same time scanning his surroundings. Linley was in an excellent mood as he enjoyed the views of Blue Maple City, which were different from Royal Wing City. How could Linley not be in a good mood? After all, they had taken a big first step on their journey to the Indigo Prefecture. Linley. Delia sent quietly through divine sense. Huh. Linley turned to look, puzzled. Delia gestured with her eyes towards Bibi, and only now did Linley notice that Bibi seemed to be in a rather strange mood. Upon arriving at Blue Maple City, the normally lively Bibi actually hadn't said a single word. He was wearing his straw hat, which covered half his face. He paid no attention at all to the surrounding architecture or people. Bibi just walked quietly. It was hard to tell from the look on Bibi's face as to what he was thinking, but seeing this, Linley began to understand. Most likely, only Nissa's affair could cause Bibi to be like this. Bibi. Linley spoke out. Bibi was suddenly startled awake, and then turned to look at Linley, puzzled. Boss, why are you calling for me? Are you thinking about Nissa? Linley lowered his head to look at Bibi. Right. Bibi nodded slightly, clearly quite saddened. Nini has gone to the Jade Float continent. She definitely headed out from Blue Maple City as well. Upon arriving in Blue Maple City, Bibi couldn't help but think about Nini. And then, Bibi let out a low sigh. However, she came to Blue Maple City centuries ago. Bibi raised his head and laughed wryly. Boss, I'm fine. Nini went to the Jade Float continent centuries ago. It would be very hard to find her. In the future, when I have the chance, well, let's go. Let's head to the Fiend Castle. As he spoke, Bibi led the way. Linley and Delia exchanged glances, then followed him. Olivier actually hesitated slightly, as though thinking of something. After Linley and the others had moved some distance, Olivier, what are you thinking about? Olivier only now came to his senses and immediately hurried after them. Olivier. Linley said. HRM. Olivier looked towards Linley. Have you truly decided to join us to the Blood Ridge continent? Linley laughed. While on the trip over from Blue Maple City, he had chatted about this with Olivier. The Starmist Sea is vast, and it's hard to say what sort of dangers we'll encounter on the trip over. Olivier laughed calmly. Linley, in the infernal realm, I have no particular goal or target. It's fine for me to just adventure with you for a time. What's more, although the Starmist Sea has dangers within it, we have you, a powerful expert, right? Powerful expert? As Linley and Olivier chatted on the street, given how densely populated the streets of Blue Maple City were, quite a few people nearby overheard them. Those people couldn't help but glance sideways at Linley, either disdainfully or with amusement. Clearly, none of them viewed Linley as a powerful expert. Because Linley was a god. In the vast infernal realm, gods could only be considered ordinary people. They couldn't be considered powerful experts at all. Linley noticed the glances of the nearby people, and he really didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. Olivier, since when did you become the type of person to say these sorts of things? Olivier should be that sort of person who was solemn and icy, and not the type of person to joke around like this. However, Linley understood that the reason was because Olivier now viewed him as a true friend. In a foreign land, people from the same homeland were especially near and dear. In the infernal realm, of course they would be closer to each other, as they were both from the Yulan continent. The Fiend Castle. The Fiend Castles everywhere were all the same. Per the usual norms, Linley's group arrived on the second floor of the Fiend Castle. There were a row of rooms on the second floor, one of which was meant for one-star fiends to take on assignments. Linley's group of 4 thus entered one of the empty rooms. Within the room, there was a golden-haired, violet-robed woman. The violet-robed woman raised her head and glanced at the 4 of them, then said calmly, "Speak. What sort of mission do you want?" "The 4 of us wish to take on a 2-star mission, hopefully one which is heading from Blue Maple City to Nishan City of the Blood Ridge continent," Linley said. Nishan City belonged to the northwestern corner of the Blood Ridge continent. From the Red Bud continent, most would first arrive at Nishan City. Blood Ridge continent? Wait a moment. The violet-robed woman glanced at Linley with her blue eyes, then closed them momentarily before opening them again later. When she did, a thick scroll appeared within her hands, which she flipped open while saying, "From Blue Maple City to the border city, Nishan, of the Blood Ridge continent, within the next month, there are 13,043 different types of missions, with 1,836 of them being 2-star missions. Choose for yourself." As she spoke, she placed the thick scroll in front of Linley. Linley's group of 4 was stunned. Over 10,000 choices? "Linley, when we came over from Royal Wing City, there were only 11 missions, 3 of which were 2-star. Delia sighed in shock. The violet-robed woman said calmly, "Every day, there's a large number of people heading from Blue Maple City to the Blood Ridge continent, the Jade Float continent, or the Starmist Sea. However, most of them are self-guided merchant caravans. There aren't that many real missions being issued. Despite that, it's normal for there to be over 10,000. Linley flipped through the 2-star missions. "Boss, which one should we choose?" BB was seeing stars after looking through so many. He didn't know which one to pick. Linley turned to glance at the others. "This time, I'll pick a simple, easy one." After their most recent experience, Linley didn't dare to choose those missions which recruited an entire pile of fiends. The more fiends that had been invited, the more complicated a mission would be. However, if there were too few fiends, the trip would be more troublesome and there would be more danger. Thus, Linley chose a 2-star mission that was employing a group of 2-star fiends. "This one," Linley decided. "This one." BB leaned over to take a look, then muttered, "There's almost no payment. To go all the way through the vast Starmist Sea for just 50,000 inkstones, last time, the escort mission's reward was 200,000 inkstones. But of course, on that mission, the mission givers, the White-Horned Elder and the Black-Horned Elder, had both died. Linley's group had failed the mission and thus had gotten nothing. If we can't get paid, what's the point?" Linley laughed. Delia laughed as well. "BB, you care about this." BB had harvested amethysts for fully 10 years. The fortune he was in possession of was most likely comparable to the entire fortune of the Boyd clan. "I'm just saying." BB mumbled. Linley was actually musing secretly that the higher the compensation was, the more hidden dangers would most likely be held within this mission. How could the last escort mission be considered a 2-star mission? Those people who had been employed on that mission had been all but throwing their lives away. Aside from Linley's group, who had been lucky enough to be spared by Fusro, all of the other hired fiends had died, with only Learmonth being able to escape thanks to his power. "Give me the fiend medallion for a moment," the violet-robed woman said. After finishing the paperwork, Linley's group of 4 left the fiend castle, while at the same time they now knew when they were going to leave. It was going to be in 3 days. One of the reasons why Linley chose this mission was precisely because it was starting in 3 days. Linley's group of 4 first enjoyed a meal, then purchased a great deal of delicacies and wine which were pre-stored, then headed to a hotel. The next 3 days, they spent within a private courtyard in the hotel. After 600 years of training, I've improved quite a bit in earth and wind. Only, my progress in my divine fire clone has been too slow. Seated in the courtyard, Linley was pondering his training. During the 600 years he had spent in the Amethyst Mountains, his divine earth clone had made the most accomplishments, while his divine wind clone had also finally, completely fused the sound waves and music profound mysteries, while also reaching the later stage in the simpler essence of the wind profound mystery. However, the elemental laws of the wind had in total 9 profound mysteries, and the further along he went, the slower it was. As for the divine fire clone, in 600 years, he had only gained a basic understanding of the flame body technique, and had yet to reach the God stage. Linley shut his eyes. Within his sea of consciousness, above the sea, 3 bodies were seated meditatively. They were the earth yellow-robed Linley, the light green-robed Linley, and the fire-red robed Linley. The 3 Linleys formed into a triangle, and above them was the rainbow sword-shaped soul. Beneath the sword-shaped soul was a black stone. At the same time, threads of golden fog was being absorbed into the sword-shaped soul. Only, the absorption speed was already very slow. Linley frowned, opening his eyes. Over the past 600 years, I've placed many amethysts into the coiling dragon ring to refine and absorb them. After 6 centuries of non-stop absorption, the rate of absorption is now growing slower and slower. This situation had only begun in the past few days. In the past, the absorption speed had never lessened before. Can it be that the amount of soul essence a soul can take in has a limit? Linley wondered. And then, Linley nodded slightly. It made sense that there was a limit. Otherwise, if a soul could constantly strengthen non-stop, what would the end result be? Linley wasn't sure. Although absorbing soul essences could allow one soul to strengthen and even seemingly improve in quality, in truth, this was a form of quality that came from quantity. It was much like a bottle. If you filled it with too much gas, the gas might compress and even be forced to liquefy due to pressure. This was an example of quantity changing quality. But there was still a limit, because if you kept on filling the bottle with gas, even after the gas liquefies, if the liquid reaches a limit, the bottle will explode, and the soul would shatter. This was the situation with Linley. His soul had reached a limit and was unable to absorb any more. If he wanted to strengthen his soul still further, he had to increase the size of the bottle and make it sturdier, allowing it to fill with more gas and to make the liquid denser. This sort of transformation was a true qualitative transformation, but there was only one way to do this. Break through to the next level of deityhood. Advancing from demigod to God, and God to high God. Even by fusing with the divine spark would allow for one soul to change. But of course, becoming a deity on one's own would result in the descent of the natural laws, increasing the intrinsic quality of the soul. This was why many high gods, even those who didn't absorb soul essences, would have souls which were more powerful than gods. Linley had absorbed so much soul essence, but his soul power could only be considered the peak of gods. Compared to high gods, he was still a bit off. 3 days later, at the gates of Blue Maple City, a large number of people were gathered. There were many groups gathered here, preparing to depart. There were also quite a few Fiend Castle staff members here. Linley's group presented their Fiend medallions for inspection, and a Fiend Castle staff member led Linley's group of 4 to a metallic life form. "Your people are here." The Fiend Castle staff member said a few words, then turned and left. "The 4 of you, I am your employer, Xaichi." A short, curly golden-haired man laughed. "Wait here a while. The people I've invited are almost all here. When we are all here, we will head into the sea." Suddenly, Aix stared at Delia unblinkingly. Delia was startled by his stare. Linley frowned, while BB said unhappily, "Hey, kid, what are you looking at? What sort of attitude is this?" "High God, Haha, you are actually a high god. Aix was all smiles. Haha, what a bargain, what a bargain. I didn't expect that amongst the 21 2-star fiends, a high god fiend would be amongst them. Book 16, Starmist Sea Chapter 4, Out to Sea. The Infernal Realms: Redbud Continent, Carol Continent, Jade Float Continent, Blood Ridge Continent, and Muja Continent. These 5 great continents were essentially formed into a circle, with the inside of the circle being the inner sea, the Starmist Sea. Although it was the inner sea, the size of this Starmist Sea vastly exceeded any other continent. Splash! The clear, slightly violet-tinged water of the seas were forming waves. At the boundless Starmist Sea, even when there was no wind, there would still be meter-high waves. Swish! A rhomboid-shaped metallic life-form boat was flying at high speed through the waves, making its way forward. This metallic life-form, transformed into a rhomboid, was nearly 50 meters long and 10 meters wide. It had no ceiling, while the metal on each side was transparent. Linley, Delia, and the others were all admiring the scenery of the Starmist Sea. This was their first time entering the Starmist Sea. So beautiful. The bottomless, faintly violet sea water. The slender, thin clouds. The clear, cool mist coiling about. Seeing this, Linley couldn't help but have a feeling of vastness in his heart. Boss, just now, when we headed out, there were almost no fog clouds above the sea. Now, there is fog everywhere. This is the same as the Amethyst Mountains. Only, it isn't as thick as the fog in the Amethyst Mountains. BB raised his head, staring up above. The metallic life form advanced upon the surface of the water. Roughly 10 meters or so above the metallic life form was the fog. The fog above the Starmist Sea came in thin strands that posed very little restriction to visibility. Linley raised his head to look at it. From nearby, a voice suddenly rang out. Don't underestimate the fog. The fog of the Starmist Sea is extremely dangerous. Upon entering the fog region, you will suffer attack from lightning. The deeper into the fog you go, the more powerful the lightning. Even high gods dare not fly too high. Linley turned to look. The speaker was another god-level fiend. This god-level fiend had short black hair which looked like steel needles, and a very thick beard. He was very casually leaning against a corner, holding a bottle of wine and drinking. My name is Linley. Linley laughed while looking at him. You can address me as Bates Baci. The big bearded man said casually. This is your first trip to the Starmist Sea, right? Everyone is like this on their first trip. However, in the future, you'll feel bored. After all, there's nothing here but sea water. Occasionally, there will be some irritating bandits. There really are bandits everywhere in the world. So damn annoying. Linley couldn't help but laugh. Haha, there's no need to worry about those bandits. The employer, Aix, walked over, his face all smiles. This time, our squad has 2 high gods. Those small bandit groups, how would they dare offend 2 high god fiends? As for the more powerful forces, they most likely won't attack people like us. Olivier glanced at him sideways. From what you are saying, we should be quite safe. In the Starmist Sea, just based on the fact that we will constantly advance for decades, who knows what will happen. In the main hall of the metallic life form, other fiends spoke out disdainfully as well. Linley chuckled. Danger. As long as they didn't encounter any 7-star fiends or Azura-level combatants, staying alive shouldn't be a problem. Night. At the front of the boat-shaped life form, Linley appeared, having stepped out of his cabin. There were currently quite a few people at the front of the boat. Whoosh! The metallic life form was moving at high speed. The sea wind was very strong, carrying a knife-like force. Ordinary people would have died from the sea wind alone. To deities, however, this sea wind didn't impact them much. Linley didn't chat with these people. He came to a half rest, leaning against the semi-translucent metallic planks, enjoying the night scenery of the Starmist Sea. The water of the Starmist Sea at night seemed very dark and gloomy, as though an enormous beast was hiding within its depths. We've been in the sea for a full year. However, I don't feel as though we've advanced very far. Linley sighed in his heart. This Bates had spoken the truth. After spending a long time in the Starmist Sea, one would feel bored. After all, they were always surrounded by boundless water. Although the metallic life form flew very quickly, one couldn't notice it. Linley. A voice rang out from behind. Linley turned, and saw that it was Delia. Delia sat by Linley's side as well. Half reclining, she took Linley's hand. For some reason, she began to laugh. "Why are you laughing like a fool?" Linley laughed as well. "I'm just thinking. Back when we met for the first time at the Ernst Institute, who would have imagined that there would come a day where the two of us would be adventuring in the Starmist Sea of the infernal realm? Fate really is a strange thing." Delia sighed. Linley couldn't help but laugh as well. "Linley, look. There's thunder in the distance." Delia pointed to the distance as she spoke. Linley turned to look as well. Indeed, in the distance. The thin fogs in the sky had a large amount of lightning snaking down from within. The scene is quite beautiful. We've been in the Starmist Sea for so long, but we've never seen a sight so interesting. Linley laughed, then sighed. Lightning. Several people nearby began to cry out in alarm. Not wasting words at all, almost all of them scurried back into the cabin like startled rabbits. Linley and Delia turned to look, puzzled, only to see their employer, that Aches, stare at them while sending a mental message, "Hurry up and come in. The Starmist Sea is about to storm. Quick. Storm." Although Linley and Delia were both puzzled, they still flew back into the metallic life form. Upon returning to the metallic life form, Linley and Delia immediately stared through the translucent metal towards the lightning. Everyone else was doing the same. Crackle, from within the mist, countless electric snakes were shooting out, with the storm area growing greater and greater. Moments later, lightning bolts began to rain down from the skies above this metallic life form. Linley was greatly shocked. In the blink of an eye, it expanded over 1,000 kilometers. Deities had a very long field of vision. For the lightning storm to expand so quickly truly caused Linley's group to be astonished. Swoosh. The metallic life form Linley's group was riding immediately completely sealed itself while turning around at high speed, fleeing backwards. Crackle. In the air above Linley's group, as well as in the air above the nearby areas, countless lightning serpents were crackling about. The area of lightning bolts was rapidly expanding, and the speed of the expansion was far faster than the metallic life form's flying speed. "I hope we can escape this storm region," Aches said softly. Linley and the other fiends all looked upwards through the translucent metal. At present, the lightning bolts had already spread across an extremely large area, and the entire world seemed to be covered by them. The originally sparse, dark clouds, under the illumination of the lightning serpents, seemed so gaudily visible. Rumble, a low sound rang out. Countless lightning bolts struck out, and even the fog began to swirl. In mid-air, countless lightning bolts and clouds began to revolve around each other, as a vortex that was over 10,000 kilometers in size began to form. This enormous lightning vortex was so dazzling to behold, and the light from it even made the faces of Linley and the others bright. Rumble. The enormous 10,000-kilometer vortex actually caused the sea water below them to suddenly also form into a 10,000-kilometer whirlpool. The power of this vortex was simply astonishing. One could imagine how much force this vortex had to contain, for it to be able to cause the water within 10,000 kilometers to form into a whirlpool. For 10,000 kilometers, sea water swirled, with the waves of the ocean rising to dozens of meters, actually touching the fog above. Swish. The metallic lifeform Linley was aboard frantically tried to pass through this region, seizing every moment to escape the center of the vortex. The power of this vortex really is something. Even the metallic lifeform is trembling. The big bearded Bates sighed. Linley could also clearly sense the tremors from throughout the metallic lifeform. "Why don't we fly up higher?" BB said with a frown. "Although we'll be hit by lightning in the fog. If we don't go too deep in, the power of the lightning shouldn't be too great. The power of this vortex is simply too enormous." The entire metallic lifeform was being shaken so powerfully by the vortex that it was almost turning backwards. "Mother of Asterisker, we actually encountered a Foxia storm. Our luck is terrible." Aix cursed softly, while at the same time working hard to direct the metallic lifeform to advance. "Enter the fog above us right now." The other fiends in the metallic lifeform laughed. "When there is a Foxia storm going on, countless bolts of lightning will gather together and charge into the fog. The power of these lightning bolts is tremendous. Not even high gods can take on those bolts of electricity. If you want to die, that's fine, but don't doom the rest of us as well." In the entire metallic lifeform, aside from Delia, there was one other high god. The bald youth laughed calmly. "We noticed it early, and the eye of the vortex is fairly far from us. We aren't in the central region of the vortex, so for now it won't be too dangerous. However, the final wave of attacks in a Foxia storm is truly frightening." "The final wave?" BB looked at him, puzzled. Linley, Delia, and Olivier weren't too sure either. The bald youth said, "The Foxia storm first forms into a vortex, and then will drag everything in towards it. At most, it will put us in a sorry state, it won't actually kill us. However, at the final stages of a Foxia storm, countless lightning bolts will swirl about in the sky, and then wildly stab down below. If you are struck," the bald man chuckled. "Even I, if struck, would die," the bald youth said. Linley was secretly shocked. Raising his head, he looked at the vortex formed from countless lightning bolts. The power of these lightning bolts truly is great. That bald youth is a high god, but not even he can take a hit from them. Now, Linley understood why the metallic lifeform was fleeing. It was because the closer one was to the center of the vortex, the denser the attacking lightning bolts and the higher the chance one would be struck. Actually, this Foxia storm was a natural phenomenon of the Starmist Sea, because the fog of the Starmist Sea was very unique. It would naturally absorb the electric power of the world, and so anyone who entered the fog would have the fog release lightning bolts upon them. But, since they knew this, nobody would be so stupid as to enter it and be struck. With no one entering the fog, the amount of lightning accumulating in the fog would naturally increase, until at a certain point, it would have to release it. That was what a Foxia storm was. The process of a large amount of electricity being released. "No time. We won't be able to escape the perimeter of the Foxia storm." Aix sighed, then turned to glance at everyone. "Everyone, be careful. Don't get hit. Remember, when the lightning bolts come down, no matter what, don't go into the water." Linley and the others understood that water conducted electricity. In an area of 10,000 kilometers, when countless lightning bolts capable of killing a high god rained down, they would probably strike down all the way into the depths of the sea. Entering the sea thus meant death. "I wish everyone good luck," the bald youth said. "Good luck." Others called out as well. "Good luck." Everyone's face was solemn. In the infernal realm, people often teetered between the brink of life and death. Only, each time, nobody dared to be complacent. This time, however, it was completely a matter of luck. The lightning bolts were just less than 100 meters above them. When they struck down, there was no time to dodge at all. Boom! 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 Linley raised his head to look. Instantly, within 10,000 kilometers, countless lightning bolts suddenly came smashing down like the rain in a dense cluster. In this instant, the entire world became eye-piercingly bright. They struck the sea in the blink of an eye, and within 10,000 kilometers, more than a large half of the numerous metallic lifeforms were struck. Linley's group was lucky. The closest lightning bolt actually struck the surface of the sea. Every single lightning bolt carried an astonishing amount of power, striking down into the depths of the sea like a sharp arrow. Every single lightning bolt only had a small amount of electricity dissipate and spread across the surface of the sea. The vast majority of the energy was so condensed that it plunged straight through into the depths of the sea. Crackle! However, even the remnants of electrical power that were on the surface of the waters caused Linley's metallic lifeform to violently shudder. Bang! The metallic lifeform exploded. Linley's group just hovered above the water. Only now did they let out sighs of relief. On the surface of the water beneath them, there was still electricity circulating, only, everyone knew that this wasn't much of a threat to them. We're safe. The employer, Aches, cracked a smile. The fiends all let out sighs of relief. They laughed. Ha ha. Safe. Mother asterisker, I got my life back. After having dodged this trial, they all began to grow relaxed. But Linley only stared into the distance. Just now, when those countless bolts of lightning had struck down, there had been another metallic lifeform not too far from Linley's groups, but that one had been unlucky. It had been struck and immediately exploded apart. Quite a few people died on the spot, while the rest had fled for their lives. Linley had no idea how many people had died within this region of 10,000 kilometers. I seem to have saw someone flying in the sky just now, ignoring those striking lightning bolts. A puzzled voice rang out. Just now, when lightning bolts had rained down like the apocalypse, someone had dared fly in the skies. All the fiends nearby, Linley included, turned to look. The speaker was the big bearded man, Bates. Frowning, he said, I shouldn't have seen wrongly. It was a person, and he seemed to be carrying a weapon. I don't know if it was a sword or a saber. Book 16, Starmist See Chapter 5, That Powerful Man. When a fog-sea storm occurred, trillions of lightning bolts would slam down. Not even a high god could withstand it. What sort of power was this? And yet, this Bates was claiming that someone dared to fly in that sort of situation? Ha, Bates, is it that you dodged this tribulation and thus were so overjoyed that you started to spout nonsense? You saw that fog-sea storm as well. Even extremely powerful high gods capable of withstanding this sort of lightning wouldn't be so wild as to fly in the air. A green-haired fiend laughed while speaking. Linley and the others all nodded slightly. In this sort of environment, most likely only someone as powerful as a 7-star fiend or an Azura would dare fly. If you don't believe me, then forget it. Bates chuckled. Clearly not caring. But I definitely didn't see wrongly just now. I don't believe that I was just seeing things. As a god, how could he be seeing things? Boss, it's just flying in lightning. You and I can both do that. What's the big deal? BB's voice rang out in Linley's mind. So what if that thunder hit me? What can it do? When we were in the castle of sand, boss, you were hit by that high god's full power lightning attack but weren't hurt at all. Linley laughed. Lightning bolts. His original body had first absorbed a drop of that golden blood, and then absorbed that drop of liquefied sovereign's might as well as its powerful energy. His body was so mighty that it had already exceeded most high god artifacts. Linley was actually confident as well in his ability to resist those lightning bolts. BB, make sure you don't start bragging. Linley sent to him. BB chortled. Got it, boss. I'm not that sort of person who brags wildly. The two chatted through their spiritual link, and so others couldn't overhear. I also saw that just now, someone was indeed flying within the lightning. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Oh! Linley couldn't help but be surprised. He turned to look. Not just Linley, the other luckily surviving fiends also turned to look. The speaker was that young bald high god. He nodded and said, and I saw clearly that on his back, he had a saber or a heavy sword type of heavy weapon. The bald youth was a high god. His words were much more convincing than Bates. There really was a person. If Lord Boff Beaufait said it was so, how could it not be? Someone immediately replied. How would I, Bates, lie about this? Even Lord Boff says the same. Bates immediately was rather self-delighted. The bald youth was named Boff. The bald youth turned to look at Bates, staring at him. Bates, just now, there were countless bolts of lightning descending. That was a life and death moment. I was confident, which is why I was able to be slightly distracted and look at my surroundings. In that sort of situation, how could you also be paying attention to the distance? Bates was startled. At a critical moment, how could he dare be distracted? Bates laughed in a silly manner, his beard fluttering up. I only look into the distance after dodging past through bolts of lightning. Only, at that time, the person had already flown far away. That's why I didn't see clearly, only that he had a weapon on his back. Oh! The bald youth said. All right, everyone. We all safely passed through this trial, which is a source of joy. Haha, but we still need to continue on our journey. The employer, Aches, chuckled. At the same time, the metallic life form which had transformed into a rhomboid ship once more appeared on the sea. Linley and the others immediately entered the metallic life form. Swoosh! The metallic life form immediately broke through the waves and advanced. Within the metallic life form, the fiends were all in an excellent mood after having survived. All of them were loudly laughing, drinking wine, and chatting. The walls of the hall were all translucent, and so everyone could look through the metal walls to see the sea outside. Currently, the surface of the sea was still faintly crackling with electric sparks, but the power was clearly much weaker now. How is it that in the center of the vortex, there is still lightning crashing down? At the side of the main hall, Olivier, staring at the outside, suddenly spoke. There's still lightning. Linley and the others immediately turned to look. Through the translucent metal, they could immediately see that in the location which had been the center of the vortex had already disappeared, but in the location above that spot, thick bolts of lightning were crashing down wildly at one location. The metallic life form constantly advanced forward, drawing closer and closer to that location. How truly odd. I've never heard of lightning continuously striking down after a Foxia storm. Immediately, people began to murmur, although none of them were worried for their safety, because the lightning was concentrated on one spot. There's no way it would hit them. Linley suddenly stared. Someone's there. As they drew near, Linley immediately discovered that in the area where the lightning was continuously crashing down, there was a man standing on the surface of the sea. The distance was too great, and Linley could only just barely make out his figure. The thick bolts of lightning crashed down, but the figure didn't dodge at all. Ah, there's someone beneath the lightning. Others discovered as well. That's the location where the center of the vortex had been. The lightning is so powerful, not even those legendary 7-star fiends should be able to take on that lightning head-on. The other fiends were shocked. However, they had all only heard of 7-star fiends. After all, meeting a 7-star fiend was extremely rare. Hey, Aches, hurry up and go closer and let us take a look. Immediately, everyone began to urge him. In the infernal realm, everyone worshipped strong experts. Someone who dared to stand in the middle of a Foxia storm and actually draw lightning bolts down upon himself was definitely someone worthy of adoration. Aches said magnanimously, fine, I'll immediately direct the metallic life form over. However, at most, we'll draw within 1 kilometer. Any closer, and we'll probably irritate that lord. As he spoke, the metallic life form headed closer towards that location. 1 kilometer's distance, for deities, was extremely close. Deities could clearly see an ant at that distance. Currently, bolts of thunder that seemed as thick as 100 lightning bolts combined were constantly crashing down upon that person in the sea. That person was thin, but he stood there, ramrod straight. His pitch-black long hair fell to his shoulders, and it casually fluttered in the wind. Linley could clearly tell that this person was carrying a warblade, and his head was raised as he stared towards the lightning. Crackle! Countless bolts of lightning crashed viciously upon his forehead, and then crackled across his entire body. However, the man just stood there unmoving like a mountain. Occasionally, his eyes would emit 2 rays of cold, netherworldly scarlet lightning which would crash into the fogs up above, causing the lightning descending from the fog to grow even stronger. So powerful! Linley's heart clenched. The power of the crashing lightning caused even space itself to shudder, but that person was completely unharmed. Everyone in the metallic life form was holding their breaths. An expert like this was too frightening. Firing lightning from his eyes. Linley began to understand. This person should be a person who trained in the laws of lightning. He should be someone who trains in the laws of lightning. The calm Olivier spoke out. The others were all startled into wakefulness, and the big bearded Bates nodded as well. Lightning, after crashing down, would normally dissipate, but this person is constantly attacking the sea of fogs, drawing down punishment from the sea of fogs time and time again, but as far as I can tell, he seems to be enjoying the punishment. He is training. The bald youth, Boff, said. Everyone nodded. For someone who trained in the laws of lightning to come personally experience the powerful lightning bolts of a fog sea storm was indeed an excellent training method. However, this sort of training method was generally only doable by a powerful expert. Let's go. The employer, Aches, laughed hurriedly. All we are doing is watching him as he stands there. If his lordship finishes his training and sees us here, if he is angry, we'll all be in trouble. As he spoke, Aches ordered his metallic life form to leave. Everyone began to laugh. Experts had their own pride. Unless there was some sort of special situation, they would rarely vent their anger on weaker people. The light of the blood sun slightly penetrated the thin fog, shining downwards. The waves billowed, and the metallic life form rode the wind, breaking through the waves and advancing. Linley and Delia were seated at the head of the ship. It's been 2 years since we've entered the sea. In the sea, there are far fewer bandits than on the continents. Linley sighed. On the Redbud continent, every so often, we'll run into bandit teams. In the Starmist Sea, however, we'll only run into them once every 2 months. Delia nodded. And then, Delia laughed. Linley, you really are such a jinx. Whatever you mention ends up happening. What? Linley turned to look as well. Indeed, in the distance, beneath the waters of the sea, there were figures floating. At the same time, an enormous, fierce green python that would require 3 or 4 men to wrap their arms around it broke out of the surface of the sea. It was at least 100 meters long. This giant python, comparable to the size of a massive dragon, came smashing towards the metallic life form, which immediately halted. Linley couldn't help but laugh and shake his head. With a flip of his hand, Roar! A 10-meter-high earthen yellow bear appeared out of nowhere. The great bear grabbed that green python, bellowing as it ripped the python into 2 pieces. Actually, the only reason why the opponents had created this elemental construct was to make the metallic life form come to a halt. Heh, I didn't expect us to encounter bandits. The Starmist Sea is incredibly boring. Finally, something interesting has come. Laughter rang out from within the metallic life form as quite a few fiends came running out. An entire group of fiends were outside the metallic life form. Right at this moment, 100 figures were hovering in front of the metallic life form. Only, they immediately noticed Delia. A high god fiend. The 100 bandits immediately felt that the situation had become thorny. Hey, why are you afraid? Are you afraid just because you saw we have 2 high god fiends? The big bearded Bates was the type of person who only feared the world was too orderly, and thus he called loudly. Linley's group of 4 was very relaxed. These 100+ figures didn't have a single high god amongst them. They posed no threat at all. Disperse. The leader, a balding man with fish scales on his forehead, growled. Right at this moment, Linley and quite a few others could sense a terrifying power, and they immediately turned to look. Only, Linley's group only saw a bolt of lightning crash down from the heavens, surrounding a person. Linley found out, to his amazement, it is him. It was the expert whom they had encountered a year ago, who had taken on the lightning bolts of the Foxia storm head-on. At the same instant this figure descended, his right fist smashed down hard from the air. Bang! The fist smashed into the empty air, but a terrifying explosive sound rang out, while at the same time, with the fist at the center, circles of ripples spread out, forming curved lines which twisted, passing by Linley's group and striking that group of bandits who had wanted to flee. Silently, all of the bandits who were struck trembled, and then fell down and slowly sank into the water. With one attack, over 100 bandits had all died. Aches, Bates, and the others all stared, slack-jawed. Linley had seen Elkin, Blue Fire, the juvenile amethyst beast, and other powerful experts, and so he had quite a bit more experience than them. Naturally, he wasn't too shocked. Only, Linley was puzzled. In the infernal realm, there are an uncountable number of bandits. Generally speaking, experts can't be bothered to deal with them. But this person, why? This was indeed puzzling. At the same time, Linley took a careful look at this person, who was now close to them. His face seemed to have been sculpted by a carving knife, and his gaze was as fierce as a blade. He himself gave off a baleful, sharp aura, and every single strand of hair seemed like a thin strand of steel. As they fluttered in the wind, they actually carried a strange sound with them. The man lowered his head, glancing down at the sinking corpses of the bandits, sneering coldly. Bandits and thieves all deserve death. After speaking, the man moved, once more flying into the fog above and moving at high speed through the fog. Everyone who entered the fog would suffer the attack of lightning bolts, and so wherever this figure passed, countless lightning bolts flashed. His speed is so fast. He is so powerful. Olivier said softly. The group of fiends came to their senses moments later. Ah! All those bandit corpses are sinking. So many divine sparks and interspatial rings. The big bearded Bates immediately howled in grief, and all the other fiends only now realized this as well. However, all of the corpses had sunk down long ago. There were quite a few people living at the bottom of the seas as well. To deities, being in the water or on the land didn't make much of a difference. The fiends immediately began to regret it. Haha, if they're gone, then forget about them. Look at all of you. Haha, let's head off. Aches laughed. The sea region up ahead has an extremely powerful bandit force. They live there, on Knifeblade Island. Let's make sure we take a roundabout path away from that damn place. As he spoke, Aches once more took control over the metallic life form, which headed out at high speed. Right now, though, Linley was still thinking about that man's appearance. This expert who trains in the laws of lightning should have the power of a 7-star fiend. Linley calculated silently. Book 16, Starmist Sea Chapter 6, Knifeblade Island. Knifeblade Island. Its circumference was nearly 10,000 kilometers. On the island, a single mountain peak stood by itself, appearing like the blade of a knife rising into the heavens. Thus, this island was named Knifeblade Island. Knifeblade Island was the lair of an extremely powerful group of bandits. Everyone passing through the Starmist Sea would actively move away from it. But despite that, the forces of Knifeblade Island were spread out and on the prowl. Upon finding a target, they would immediately lead a group of people to attack in unison. Rumble, the waters of the ocean bellowed as they struck upon the beaches of the island. A bolt of lightning crashed down. After the electric sparks dissipated, a person appeared standing at the beach. It was the grim-looking man who carried the warblade. The grim eyes of the man came to a rest on the distant, eye-catching mountain peak. He murmured, "Knifeblade Island. This is the second place." And then, the man strode forward, his body flashing with each step which took him hundreds of meters as he instantly entered the depths of the island. The mountain peak had a large number of bandits living there. This grim-looking man was dressed in a long black robe, and he strode forward boldly, seeming to not care at all about the power of these bandits. "Who is it?" Within the mountain forests, someone shouted loudly. A very large number of bandits lived here at Knifeblade Island. Naturally, people would discover this black-haired man, but the black-haired man didn't even look at the person who had shouted, continuing to move hundreds of meters with each step. The bandit's face changed, and he immediately shouted loudly, "Someone is invading the mountain! Someone is invading the mountain!" That ringing roar filled the entire mount peak. The bandits who had been resting or training were all startled awake, and the entire Knifeblade Island became a hubbub of activity. Immediately, quite a few pirates began to move towards the sound. Naturally, some of them would run into the black-haired man. But the black-haired man still didn't care at all, continuing to move forward. "Over there!" Immediately, people discovered him. "Halt!" Others shouted. But the black-haired man still traveled hundreds of meters per step, constantly moving towards the mountain peak. "Kill!" Not hesitating at all, the many bandits gathered in the surrounding areas all immediately bellowed, brandishing their cruel, merciless weapons. Flashes of fiery red light, earthen yellow light, all sorts of elemental law-based attacks began. The black-haired man's facial expression didn't change at all. Crackle! A strange sound rang out. The black-haired man's speed didn't slow down at all, moving 1,000 meters in 3 steps. Hey? How come this person isn't reacting at all? Quite a few bandits didn't understand at all. Bang! Very suddenly, 30 bandits suddenly exploded, their flesh and blood splattering everywhere and their divine sparks landing to one side. The lucky survivors were so terrified, their faces turned white. Only now did they realize that the person had attacked just now. Only, the speed was too fast. They hadn't seen it at all. The elemental laws of the wind, lightning, and light were all very suited for speed. How fast someone would be depended on their accomplishments. But to reach a level of speed where not even these gods could sense anything at all was simply terrifying. From the base of the mountain to the gates of that castle within Knifeblade Island, he only took, in total, 28 steps. He killed 628 people. Given the amount of chaos he was creating, the 3 leaders of Knifeblade Island naturally came out as well, and the elites of Knifeblade Island were currently all on the walls of the castle. Knifeblade Island had in total 3 leaders, 100 high gods, and over 10,000 gods. In the society of bandits, they could be considered a supersized power. At this moment, those 100 high gods were all surrounding the 3 leaders. They were on top of the walls of the castle, staring down at the black-haired man. "Who are you, that you have come here to wantonly commit slaughter here?" A grim silver-haired man said in an icy voice. He was the chief leader of Knifeblade Island, Akats, AKCI, and was also the #1 expert of the entire Knifeblade Island. Akats could already tell that the black-haired man was not easy to deal with. Why has this person come to make trouble for us bandits? Akats didn't understand. The ultimate experts of the infernal realm generally didn't want to bother with bandits. The black-haired man slowly raised his head. His face was pale, and his eyes stared at Akats like daggers. My name is Lomio Bornazen Lumiao Boi Arnyosen. Akats frowned. Lomio Bornazen? He hadn't heard of this name before. The black-haired man said calmly, I heard that Mr. Akats, the leader of Knifeblade Island, had already become a 6-star fiend long ago. Today, I have 2 reasons for coming to Knifeblade Island. The first reason is to challenge you, Mr. Akats. Akats couldn't help but narrow his eyes as he weighed this Lomio with a viperous gaze. Him being a 6-star fiend was back before he became a bandit. After so many years had passed, not many people knew whether or not he now had the power of a 7-star fiend. This was also the reason why nobody in Knifeblade Island dared to offend him. Nobody wanted to offend someone who was possibly a 7-star fiend. This person dares to challenge me. Then, he most likely is confident in being able to challenge a 7-star fiend. Akats was calculating mentally. Moments later. Brothers, join forces, and kill him. Akats instantly spread out his divine sense to the 100 high gods nearby, including the other 2 leaders. The group of high gods simultaneously drew out their weapons and immediately used their most powerful attacks. Swoosh! The black-haired man instantly rose into the heavens. Akats, you truly disappoint me. A cold voice rang out from the skies, while at the same time, countless bolts of lightning appeared, and countless electric serpents actually began to swirl about as though in a vortex. The eye-catching electric serpents radiated light, glowing on the faces of each person of the castle. Akats and the others were all shocked. Boss, this looks like a Foxia storm. The second leader, Dimon, Daiman, said in alarm by Akats' side. Indeed, this was the scene of the Foxia storm, with countless lightning bolts appearing and circling about. Boss, what should we do? The third leader, Niels, Nilesi, was worried as well. Akats' face was sinister. He knew that once those countless lightning bolts snaked down, most likely 90% or more of the 100 high gods present would all be killed. These were the elites of Knifeblade Island. Akats immediately shouted loudly, Lomio, since you've challenged me, then come. As he spoke, a pair of short, deep green awls appeared in his hands. This is the saber attack I have just developed. If you can withstand this blade, I will spare your life. The cold voice rang out from the heavens, where many lightning bolts snaked around in the vortex. Seeing this, Akats only let out a cold snort, his entire body faintly beginning to gleam with a green light. At the same time, Akats' entire body began to turn bizarrely blurred as a fog enveloped his entire body. So you have some ability. The calm voice rang down from the vortex above. Boom! The vortex from the large amount of lightning bolts suddenly began to spin, and a large amount of lightning concentrated at one point. Instantly, from that point, a ray of fierce electric saber light blasted out, carrying boundless power as it ripped through the skies and chopped downwards. Akats' entire body was enveloped by that fog, and on the surface of the fog, a strange windwheel appeared, frantically spinning. Crackle! One crack after another was appearing in space. The most powerful defense of the boss. The second leader, Dimon, and the third leader, Niels, watched this from afar in nervousness. Their boss trained in the elemental laws of water. The defensive power of the elemental laws of water was that it was both unyielding and soft, and could definitely be considered amongst the most powerful of defensive laws. Boom! The lightning saber flashed, chopping down upon the foggy windwheel. Bang! The windwheel exploded, transforming into 2 deep green awls which fell to one side. The fog dissipated as well. The faint green light covering Akats' body swiveled like a protective membrane over Akats. He wanted to flee, but the speed of that lightning saber was simply too fast, and it directly chopped onto his body. It paused for only a moment. But then, the lightning saber flash still managed to chop through the membrane. Bang! And then, the explosion. Akat's entire body blew apart, and 3 divine sparks actually fell to the ground, along with an interspatial ring. The lightning saber flash transformed into a warblade, and the black-haired man, Lomio Bornazen, once more appeared. Interspatial ring. The other 2 leaders, Dimon and Niels, immediately stared at that interspatial ring. Akats had been in control of more than half of the wealth of Knifeblade Island, all of which was stored in his interspatial ring. The black-haired man, Lomio, stretched his hand out and took the interspatial ring. This sight caused the facial muscles of the watching bandits to twitch and convulse. Lomio looked at the 3 divine sparks. 6-star fiend? He did indeed have the power of a 6-star fiend. If I hadn't made that breakthrough just a year ago, it wouldn't have been so easy to kill you today. Lomio turned to look at the others. Dimon and Niels, as well as the other high gods, felt terror in their hearts. Their leader, Akats, was dead. Who could overcome this Lomio? In addition, to an expert on Lomio's level, 100 high gods wouldn't be able to do anything to him at all in a group battle. Mr. Lomio, the boss is dead because his strength was inferior to yours. You'd best leave. Dimon suppressed his anger. The black-haired man swept them with a glance, then continued. I told you, I have 2 reasons for being here today. The first was to challenge Akats. This is already completed. The second reason, the black-haired man's lips curved upwards. He was laughing. This cold, callous man was actually laughing. His smile appeared quite pleasant, only, the group of bandits all felt their hearts shudder. The second reason is to destroy Knifeblade Island. The black-haired man, Lomio, said, his voice turning cold. Flee! An explosive shout instantly rang out, and the 2 leaders as well as the group of high gods immediately scattered in every direction. The large amount of bandits on Knifeblade Island all immediately scattered as well. Boom! A large number of lightning bolts blasted out. Of the 100 high gods, 52 corpses immediately collapsed. But of course, of the 52 corpses, many had high god level divine clones as well, and so they continued to flee. They ran quite fast. The black-haired Lomio laughed coldly. Right now, all of the bandits of Knifeblade Island had fled. Only corpses remained. The second place is done. Time to start with the third target. The black-haired man transformed into a ray of lightning, disappearing into the horizon. The second leader, Dimon, was currently leading 36 high gods and thousands of gods. They were mounted on 10 metallic life forms, advancing in an awe-inspiring sight. While fleeing, in order to prevent themselves from being all taken in one engagement, the second leader and the third leader had led their forces fleeing separately. What sort of horrible luck is this? We were doing perfectly fine when such a monstrously powerful bastard appeared. Dimon's rage knew no bounds. The vast fortune we built up. Dimon's heart ached. The leader, Akats, and that interspatial ring which had fallen after his death. The fortune stored there exceeded what he and the third leader had, combined. The high gods around them all had ugly looks on their faces. Second leader, there's a metallic life form up ahead. Immediately, a subordinate reported in. Dimon looked out through the metallic life form towards the outside world. These bandits were people who normally waylaid and robbed people to begin with. Right now, they were in an especially foul mood and had bellies full of fire. Dimon didn't dare to vent his anger on that black-haired Lomio, but he did dare to do on these travelers. Kill them. Kill them all, don't spare a single one. Dimon said viciously. Dimon's group had been slaughtering everyone in their path as they headed to another island. Linley's group was leisurely resting within the metallic life form, and Aches was chuckling. We went over 10,000 kilometers away from Knifeblade Island. There should be no problem. Is Knifeblade Island so powerful? You seem very afraid of them. BB said. Knifeblade Island has more than 100 high gods alone, and I hear that long, long ago, Their leader was a 6-star fiend. According to legend, he now has the power of a 7-star fiend. You tell me, is he powerful or not? Even those 2 other leaders are only slightly weaker than the chief leader. Aix said with some fear. Linley was secretly astonished. A bandit group actually had a 7-star fiend within it. Hey! Linley looked through the translucent metal windows to the side. Why are there 10 metallic life forms, and each one so enormous? It seems as though there are hundreds of people in each metallic life form, for a total of thousands of people all combined. Can it be that there is large trading caravan passing through the Starmist Sea? Suddenly, the 10 metallic life forms suddenly separated while flying at high speed. Moments later, Linley's group of just 20 or so people were completely surrounded by a dense network of people who had come out from every single metallic vessel. Linley's group was momentarily stunned. Even if they want to waylay us, there's no need for them to use thousands of people against our little group. Linley felt numb as well. Book 16, Starmist Sea, Chapter 7, Hidden Expert. In the vast Starmist Sea, 10 large metallic life-form vessels were completely surrounding a small metallic life-form vessel. Thousands of people flew out from within the metallic vessels, all of the bandits staring at Linley's pitiful little group. Clearly, they didn't feel any concern about the group of 20 plus in front of them. Finished. We're all finished. Aix's entire body was shaking slightly, and his face was ashen. The other god-level fiends, upon seeing the countless experts surrounding them, all felt their hearts turn into blocks of ice. They felt so cold. The god-level fiends all felt despair in their hearts. Thousands of bandit gods were surrounding them. They didn't have any chance at all. Boss, this will be troublesome. Bibi's face was solemn. Linley nodded slightly. Not just troublesome. When engaging in group attacks, the more people there were, the more terrifying the attacks would be. The other side had thousands of gods, after all. There are even people beneath us. Linley glanced downwards and saw that beneath the surface of the sea, there were hundreds of bandits. These bandits seemed to be worried that Linley's group would flee down into the depths. We're finished. Some people were already in despair. The big bearded Bates had a solemn look on his face. He said in a low voice, thousands of gods, and also high gods. There are too many of them. Each person will have to rely on their own abilities. I wish everyone the same thing I wished you during the fog wave storm, good luck. Everyone, good luck. The bald man, Boff, said in a low voice as well. Although he was a high god, in a situation like this, he wouldn't be able to help the others. Within the metallic life form was utter, deathly silence. Everyone all turned their heads to look. The speaker was Aix. Their employer, Aix, said in a solemn voice, this time, I invited you all to come, but I didn't expect that this would result in everyone being trapped within a calamity of certain death. I am sorry. Aix bowed very slightly. Mother Asterisker, even if we die, let's kill a few of them. Someone began to bellow. Right, if they want to kill me, it won't be so easy. I even survived the goddamn Foxia storm. I won't die so easily. The insides of the entire metallic life form began to bellow with shouts. But Linley's group of 4 was silent. Rather strange. Linley looked towards the outside. On the fog sea, those countless gods were clustered all around them. So many gods are gathered, but none of them are attacking? What is causing them to hesitate? Boss, Bibi looked at Linley. At a time like this, there's no need to pretend any longer. Linley said with resignation through his divine sense. By now, if they kept hiding their power, they'd probably be killed. Suddenly, a powerful bolt of lightning snaked its way out from the bottom of the sea, bellowing as it struck towards Linley's metallic life form. With a colossal boom sound, The entire metallic life form transformed into smithereens, while Linley and the others all immediately began to hover above the sea. Linley and the other 20+ people were like a flock of sheep trapped by a pack of wolves. They floated in the air pathetically. Ha ha, the thousands of bandits all immediately began to laugh loudly. At present, the second leader of Knifeblade Island, Dimon, led 36 high gods towards the front of the group, and these ordinary god bandits all immediately respectfully withdrew. Dimon waved his hand gently, and all of the thousands of gods immediately fell silent. Linley and the others immediately looked towards Dimon. This person should be the leader of these bandits. Linley stared at Dimon, calculating mentally. Behind him there are 36 high gods. This bandit leader most likely has the power of a 5-star fiend or even a 6-star fiend. Linley began to grow careful. At present, he didn't have enough confidence in his ability to battle with a 6-star fiend. Rumble, the ocean water rolled out in waves. Dimon and the other high gods were up ahead, stepping on the waves, their eyes faintly red. Ha ha, I didn't expect there to be 2 high gods here. Dimon began to laugh wildly, his eyes locked onto that bald youth, Boff, while occasionally glancing at Delia. Do you know who I am? I'll tell you. I'm the second leader of Knifeblade Island. Dimon had an evil smile on his face, but his red eyes carried a strange look in them. The group of bandits all knew that once their second leader, Dimon, smiled in this manner, it meant he had gone insane and had just turned into a monster. Milord of Knifeblade Island. Aix hurriedly called out loudly in supplication. We are only ordinary travelers. I hope you can spare us, milord. We are willing to offer you our wealth. Wealth. Dimon, hearing this, couldn't help but think of the death of Akats and how his interspatial ring had been taken away. That was the fortune of Knifeblade Island. Dimon was still unable to accept this matter. Dimon stared with bulging eyes at Aix. Wealth. How much wealth can you possibly have? Do you think I care about your money? Ever since I fled from Knifeblade Island, I encountered 3 groups of people on the way over and killed them all. Immediately, Dimon pointed at Linley's group. And you, will be the 4th group. Linley and the others, hearing this, frowned. These people fled from Knifeblade Island. Linley began to understand. That bald man and that B*TCH. Those 2 are high gods. The 4 of you, go deal with them. Dimon turned to glance backwards as he spoke calmly. Immediately, 4 high gods flew out, and Dimon immediately then shouted, Brothers of the second mountain, this time, it's your turn. Kill them all. Immediately, a group of gods that had been waiting this entire time immediately came charging out. Last 3 time, it hadn't been their turn to attack, and so they had already become quite impatient. Kill! Kill! All of them were so excited that their eyes were red. 700 or 800 gods, under the command of the 4 high gods, charged forward all together. The other bandits all watched from afar. Sending out 800+ people to kill this small group of around 20 was already more than enough. The 800 people charged forward, walking on the waves, with thousands watching around them. This sort of mental pressure was enough to cause Linley and the others to feel unable to breathe. Everyone, protect yourselves. The bald youth, Boff, said in a low voice. Knifeblade Island's side had 4 high gods, 2 of which were virtually flying shoulder by shoulder, simultaneously emitting 2 draconic roars. 2 white icy dragons emerged from the surface of the sea, charging straight towards Boff as the 2 high gods continued to advance. The other 2 high gods stared at Delia, attacking her at the same time. Linley's gaze grew cold, and blood violet appeared in his hand. Linley, let me give it a try. Delia's voice rang out in Linley's mind. Linley turned and saw that Delia was wielding the spear of Cortez. Her waist swiveled slightly, and then shot backwards the other direction, and the spear in her hand shot out. Swish! With a green flash of light, it arrived in front of a high god. That person struggled to dodge, but unfortunately, the spear of Cortez, infused with the dimensional attack Profound Mysteries, was simply too fast. The high god was only able to make his head avoid the attack, but with a crunch sound, the spear of Cortez pierced straight through the high god's right chest. The other high god wanted to use this opportunity to attack Delia, but suddenly, in front of him a death god golem appeared. Humph! The death god golem's right leg lashed out viciously, smashing straight out towards the skull of that high god. Clang! The high god immediately used his divine artifact to dodge, but he was still sent knocked flying backwards from the collision. The high god flipped in the air and stabilized himself, but his face changed dramatically and he stared at the death god golem in astonishment. A death god golem. Actually, the attack of these four high gods was nothing much. The truly terrifying scene was that of those 800 gods, especially in close range. The 700 gods actually began to brandish the divine artifacts in their hands, and countless dazzling rays of light shot out, piercing towards each of the 20-plus figures. Roar! Linley immediately dragon-formed, forcibly taking on several blows aimed at Delia. A few god-level attacks wouldn't do anything to Linley at all. BB helped the nearby Olivier as well. Despite that, however, the 800 gods still killed 6 of the fiends. Bellowing, the bandits charged forward into close combat. The dense group of bandits swarmed forward, and everyone engaged in a wild battle, with Linley, BB, and Olivier all using their most powerful attacks. Linley and BB went without saying. As for Olivier, he had reached the god level in both the laws of light and the laws of darkness. As someone who had a mutant soul who had fused light type and darkness type divine power, each of his sword blows reached a new threshold in speed and also contained a strange, pure power. He slaughtered a person with each sword. Huh! From afar, Dimon's face suddenly changed as he stared unblinkingly at Olivier. A soul mutate. Dimon could immediately tell. Oliver's fusion of light type and darkness type power had yet to reach Learmont's level. Learmonth was capable of reaching the level of having the two types of divine power fused to the point where occasionally the destruction type aura shone and occasionally the fire type aura emanated. But Olivier could not. Haha, we suffered such a great loss at Knifeblade Island. But I didn't imagine I would encounter the soul mutate. Dimon felt a surge of fire build up in his heart. If I offer him. Dimon began to grow excited. But the battle scene was causing Dimon to frown ago. Not only did Linley, BB, and Olivier slaughter at high speed, there was another person who was terrifying. Strange swish 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 sounds could be heard as one god after another fell non-stop. A black shadow flashed without stopping. Those 700 bandits were reducing in number at an astonishing rate as they all fell down lifelessly. Miserable screams continued unabated, but nobody could resist. Linley brandished Blood Violet, effortlessly killing an oncoming god while at the same time glancing at astonishment towards the shadow which flew about at high speed. I didn't expect that he was actually hiding his power. Nobody realized this. Brothers of the Second Mountain, return. Dimon's face was filled with anger, and he immediately roared. Immediately, the lucky survivors retreated, but in this blink of an eye, their numbers had been reduced to 400, with the vast majority having been killed by this person who had hidden his power. Oh ho, how boring. They actually fled. The figure reformed atop the waves. It was the big bearded Bates. At present, Bates' aura was mysterious and mighty. He was a high god. He was hiding and suppressing his aura. Linley said to himself silently. Generally speaking, when investigating someone's power, one did so by sensing someone's aura, and from it judged if someone was strong or weak. If one wasn't able to sense it at all, it meant that the target was a level more powerful. By this, Linley was capable of judging who was a god and who was a high god. He couldn't sense a high god's aura. But sometimes, A powerful high god was capable of intentionally releasing just a weak aura to intentionally cause others to be unable to correctly judge his power. Haha, Dimon was so angry, he started to laugh. I didn't expect that in your group, there was a third high god, and seemingly the most powerful of the group at that. Dimon was currently in a terrible mood, and so had engaged in slaughter the entire way over. Upon encountering this Bates, a tough bone to chew, Dimon was naturally angry. The most powerful of the group. Bates looked at his surroundings. The bald boff was currently heavily injured, while Delia had been able to hold her own by relying on the death god golem. The big bearded Bates laughed while looking at Dimon. Hey, leader of Knifeblade Island. I trust you understand that if you want to deal with us, even if you succeed, you will probably lose a majority of your men. You won't get anything good in exchange for the loss. I can't be bothered to kill those weak little gods either. How about we go our way and you go yours? Immediately, the luckily surviving god-level fiends all grew excited. Bates, Lord Bates. Aches had some ability and was still alive. He was currently looking at Bates in excitement. Lord Bates, I truly must thank you this time. When I reach the Blood Ridge continent, I'll definitely increase your remuneration. At present, Aches was so excited, he didn't know what to say. As Aches saw it, as long as Dimon wasn't an idiot, he wouldn't waste the lives of his subordinates. Remuneration. Bates laughed. Fine, but it has to be double that of Boff's. Definitely double. Aches said hurriedly. Bates then glanced at Dimon. Hey, are you done with your considerations yet? Why are you standing there like a fool? Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 8, Blackstone Prison. Although Bates had asked the question, he himself was quite confident. He understand very well the habit of these bandits, abuse the soft targets, fear the hard ones. Even though the bandits might be able to kill all their targets, they would consider the cost-benefit ratio and if it was worth it. Right now, in Linley's group, Bates was too powerful. Even Linley, BB, and Olivier could easily kill gods. They were clearly a tough bone to gnaw. To kill Bates and the others, the bandits would definitely lose quite a bit. It'll definitely be fine. The bandit leader won't be so foolish. The god-level fiend with green hair, Tam Tai Mu, had a rare smile appear on his face. We'll definitely live. A nearby short, muscular man also said in a low voice. Ache's eyes were filled with hope as well. If we can avoid battle, that would be best. Linley said to himself. However, he didn't dare to relax, continuing to stare vigilantly at the nearby bandits. Currently, Linley's side had 14 lucky survivors, all of whom were waiting for the reply from the enemy leader, Dimon. The bandit forces were awaiting Dimon's response as well. Second leader? Kill them or no? The high god behind Dimon asked softly. The bandits were somewhat unwilling to give up. The other side only had a few people, while they had thousands, 30 plus high gods, and their powerful second leader. The enemy had killed nearly 300 of the gods. Were they to be allowed to leave, just like that? The bandits weren't willing. Dimon narrowed his eyes, staring at the distant Bates, and then glanced sideways at Olivier. A soul mutate. Dimon was calculating while glancing at Bates. This high god expert is clearly one who trains in the laws of darkness and specializes in speed as well as hiding his aura. Dimon was very surprised as well, because he hadn't discovered Bates had been hiding his power at first. The profound mysteries he is training in should focus in subterfuge and speed. His attack power should probably be somewhat lacking. Dimon said to himself. If the opponent was very powerful, there was no need for Bates to negotiate with him at all. Thousands of people surrounded those 10 plus. All was silent. Everyone was waiting for Dimon's decision. Then, very suddenly. Kill. Dimon suddenly howled angrily. The looks on the faces of Aix, Tam, and the other gods immediately froze. Even Bates' face changed. Attacking. Linley frowned. Dimon's eyes were gleaming red, and he bellowed, "Brothers, all of you, charge together. Kill them. Kill." First came the group of high gods behind Dimon. At their fastest speed, they charged forward. Instantly, as waves bellowed, elemental behemoths appeared out of nowhere, and the high gods either charged forward astride the heads of elemental pythons or were hidden beneath the foggy waves. The combined attacks of over 30 high gods, the aura alone made Linley feel it was hard to breathe. In unison, those 30+ high god brandished their weapons, blasting out soul attacks. All sorts of half-translucent flashes of light shot out towards Linley's group. Terrible. Linley's face changed dramatically. These 30+ high gods were less than 100 meters away from Linley's group. A soul attack moved much faster than a person. Everyone was only able to move very slightly. The combined soul attacks of these 3 high gods were aimed at 3 people. Bates, Boff, and Delia. Bang. 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 Careful. In that dangerous moment, Linley, by Delia's side, suddenly pulled her aside while also trying to move away. Bang. Bang. Even though he dodged as best as he could, 6 soul attacks still slammed onto Linley. 30 or so high gods attacking 3 people. 10 soul attacks were aimed at Delia and Boff, while 10 more were aimed at Bates. Linley dodged as best as he could, but 6 high god soul attacks still struck him. Bang. The 6 soul attacks directly entered Linley's consciousness, smashing heavily against his soul-protecting sovereign artifact. Like eggs smashing onto a rock, they shattered upon collision. These high gods were all fairly weak high gods, and so their soul attacks were quite rudimentary. Only now did Linley breathe a sigh of relief. Linley. Delia couldn't help stare unblinkingly at Linley in worry. "I'm fine." Linley revealed a smile. The 600 years of training he had spent in the Amethyst Mountains, especially his absorption of so many amethysts and their soul essences, caused his soul-protecting sovereign artifact's flaw to rapidly heal. After 600 years, the flaw had already a thin membrane appear. Although it wasn't as strong as the other parts of the soul-protecting sovereign artifact, its defense was still excellent. Linley wasn't too bad off, but Boff and Bates were in trouble. The bald youth, Boff, was also struck by several soul attacks. He directly crashed down from the skies, while at the same time, another Boff dressed in a black robe flew out. It was Boff's divine god clone. Swish. Bates was extremely fast. Facing those 10 soul attacks, he actually dodged the majority and was only struck by 2. These 2 soul attacks caused Bates' face to turn ashen. He didn't have a soul-protecting divine artifact. After all, even someone as mighty as a 7-star fiend wouldn't have a soul much stronger than that of most ordinary high gods. At most, their defense would be a bit stronger. If they took too many soul attacks head-on, they would definitely be finished. The big bearded Bates glanced sideways at Linley. This Linley, he really is hiding his power. He was hit by multiple soul attacks but he is fine. He really lives up to the name of being a descendant of the 4 Divine Beasts clan. Bates, having seen Linley's dragon form, had already guessed Linley's status. Big brother. Nearby, a desolate cry. Linley turned. It was one of the god-level fiends who had come with them. That skinny, tall, silver-haired man, Wilburn Wayarbo, was crying out in grief, his tears already flowing down. What had happened was that although Bates had dodged the majority of the soul attacks, one of them had struck upon the unfortunate elder brother of Wilburn. How could Wilburn's brother possibly withstand the soul attack of a high god? What's more, Wilburn's older brother had fused with the divine spark to become a god. He immediately died. Wilburn should have a close relationship with him. Linley saw how heartbroken Wilburn was, and he said to himself. At this moment, nobody went to console Wilburn. Linley immediately focused his attention on those high gods. Haha, I didn't expect you to have some ability. Those high gods laughed loudly. Brothers, let's do it again. These 30+ high gods all like to engage in combo attacks. Linley, if you still refuse to act, then I'm going to stop bothering about this and leave. A voice rang out in Linley's mind. Linley could immediately tell that the person who sent the message was that big bearded Bates. Linley, I didn't expect you to be a high god as well who was hiding his power. Even I didn't see through you. Linley was stunned. He was a high god. How come he didn't know? A venerable core disciple of the four divine beasts clan. I recognized you as soon as you transformed. You are going to keep hiding your strength. I, Bates, am not skilled at other things, but I'm highly talented in fleeing for my life. I'm not able to deal with 36 high gods, especially that leader. If you don't make your move, I'm leaving. I'm not the sort to sacrifice his life for others. Bates sent through divine message. Bates valued his own life quite highly. Haha, kill them. From afar, Dimon shouted in joy. Got it, second leader. The 30+ high gods were fully confident, once more waving their weapons. Linley. Bates once more sent his divine sense over. Time to prepare for a slaughter. Linley sent back to Bates. At the same time, within Linley's sea of consciousness, beneath his rainbow-colored soul, with that black stone at the center, a large amount of spiritual energy began to spread out. At the same time, a large amount of elemental essence began to condense. Linley stared calmly at the 30+ high gods, their weapons raised. Strangely, powerful surges of Earth-style divine power rippled out like the waves of the sea, spreading out to a range of 200 meters. The curvature of the ripples was identical to the changing curvatures of those 108 rays of spiritual energy of the black stone. Within a range of 200 meters. Those 36 high gods suddenly found that a tremendously powerful gravitational force was affecting them. This enormous gravitational force instantly caused them to be unable to continue to fly, and they began to sink downwards. Ah! The 36 high gods began to cry out in alarm. Whoosh! The countless amounts of earth elemental essence had already completely solidified. A completely black, totally sealed prison had formed, with everyone within 200 meters being caught within the black prison. Those 36 high gods were naturally trapped within as well. Blackstone prison. The thousands of gods outside were all stupefied and stared slack-jawed. But within the Blackstone prison. What is this place? The 36 high gods all stared in astonishment at the surroundings. They were surrounded by dark walls, with corridors and rooms present. They could already tell that they were in a different place, and they could sense the powerful gravity. The gravity was simply too extravagant. Even high gods were unable to fly. Crunch. A black shadow flashed past, and a high god collapsed. Haha, this is excellent. Bates was incomparably excited. Linley's side was all surrounded by Earth-style divine power, and they weren't restricted by the gravity at all. Their speed was like normal. The 36 high gods, however, had their speed dropped to a very low level. Bates, however, wasn't impacted at all. Also, those 36 high gods had all been separated. It was a massacre. This damn place, break. A high god angrily smashed towards a black wall, which rippled like water but wasn't damaged at all. This was a Blackstone prison formed from 3 types of profound mysteries. In terms of defensive strength, it was comparable to Linley's former pulse-guard armor. Mother of Asterisker, how should we leave? The high god was extremely frantic. Suddenly. Hi! A voice rang out. The high god turned to look and saw a strange shadow emerge from the walls. He only saw a pair of cold, dark golden eyes appear, and then his head went dizzy and he lost all consciousness. Killing in this environment really is easy. Linley laughed calmly. The Blackstone prison wasn't just capable of trapping people and applying powerful gravity, the Blackstone itself also contained that sort of special soul-affecting property, much like the strange wind sound of the Amethyst Mountains. As Linley attacked, he immediately used his spiritual energy to use the Blackstone to affect the soul. When the opponent was dizzy and unconscious, Linley would naturally kill them effortlessly with one attack. Ugh! A high god was greatly shocked and immediately used a soul attack. A black light flashed by, and the high god's head immediately blew apart as a divine spark flew out. Haha, he's so slow. BB laughed loudly. Under this sort of profound gravity, their speed was slowed and they weren't even able to dodge. All they could do was use soul attacks, but upon encountering BB, this person still died. But of course, if he encountered Linley, he'd be even worse off. He wouldn't even have a chance to use a soul attack. Brothers, material attacks, all together. In the instant the Blackstone prison formed, Dimon immediately bellowed angrily. Immediately, the thousands of gods immediately wielded their weapons, and thousands of tightly clustered material attacks shot out. Earthen yellow, light blue, green, golden yellow, all sorts of colors shot out as attacks roared forth towards the Blackstone prison. However, whoosh! The Blackstone prison, strangely enough, began to sink down from the surface of the sea into the depths. Bang! 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 Of the thousands of attacks, only a few hundred struck the Blackstone prison. The combined attacks of a few hundred gods, against this Blackstone prison formed from three types of profound mysteries and which was comparable to something completely formed from pulse-guard armor, only caused the walls to tremble lightly, and then immediately return to calmness. It hadn't been damaged at all. Linley's Blackstone prison wasn't too far off from that castle of sand. Huh! Dimon was shocked. But suddenly, the entire Blackstone prison bizarrely vanished, revealing 12 people within it. It was Linley's group. Although all of this took time to describe, roughly only 10 seconds had passed before the Blackstone prison formed, then vanished. The only difference was, those 36 high gods had all been killed. Impossible. Dimon's face changed dramatically. 36 high gods, all dead in the blink of an eye. How was this possible? There's an expert who trains in the laws of the earth. Dimon understood that just now, the Blackstone castle that had formed had a powerful earth aura. In the blink of an eye, 36 high gods had been killed. That expert most likely isn't the big bearded fellow. There's another hidden expert in that group. Dimon was startled. He didn't know what was going on with this little squad. It originally only had 2 high gods, which was already quite formidable, but then first Bates popped out of nowhere, and now it seemed yet another powerful figure had appeared. Haha, Bates laughed loudly. Now, the only high god left is you. Heh, my turn. How could Dimon dare to take them head on? Dimon wasn't completely confident in being able to deal with Bates' power, and what's more, there was another hidden figure who was even more powerful than Bates, who trained in the laws of the earth. Flee! Without saying a word, Dimon immediately turned and fled, while secretly cursing, this squad only had 20 or so people. Why are there so many experts hidden within it? That Blackstone castle actually resulted in 36 high gods dying so quickly within it. It definitely was formed by a 6-star fiend, or possibly a 7-star fiend. Dimon was extremely certain. Forget it. Why obsess over it? At least I discovered a soul mutate this time. I can be considered to have made an accomplishment. While thinking this, Dimon fled far away. The second leader fled. Quick, flee. Those thousands of gods were all frightened and fled as well. Just now, their combined attacks had been unable to budge the Blackstone prison, and that was with the Blackstone prison being so huge as to have hundreds of attacks strike it. If it had been a high god, perhaps only a few attacks would have landed. Moments later, they all disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only 12 lucky survivors. Just now, who was that expert who created that black stone castle? The lucky survivors and Aches immediately looked around, only all of the surviving fiends were puzzled. Bibi, Olivier, and the others all intentionally looked around in confusion as well. Hey, who was it? Bibi looked puzzled. We actually have such a powerful expert here? I admire him so very much. Tell me, who is it? Bibi continuously looked around at the others. Book 16, Starmist C, Chapter 9, Emotions. The waves of the sea rolled on. There was nobody left around them. The 12 lucky survivors had strange looks on their faces. Seeing Bibi continuously search for that hidden expert, the big bearded Bates cursed silently to himself, "You know who it is, yet you put on such a show." He immediately laughed loudly, "Bibi, if that expert doesn't want to reveal himself, how can you know?" "Right. Right." Bibi nodded. The bald youth, Boff, had a calm look on his face. His divine high god clone was dead, leaving behind only his god clone. He said calmly, "No need to look for him. Perhaps that expert isn't even amongst us and is an expert who was hidden near us and helped us, then left. This isn't impossible." It was indeed possible for those 7 star fiends and Azura level experts to escape the notice of these bandits, but under normal conditions, would an Azura level expert be so bored as to help them? Unless there was someone they cared about present. That might indeed be the case. Ache's face was all smiles. "Everyone, let's not waste any more time. Let's hurry off." Aches was a very skilled person. Regardless of whether or not that expert was in their squad, since he didn't want to show himself, Aches naturally wouldn't pursue the matter and possibly make that person unhappy. Aches was delighted from the bottom of his heart. His squad had such an expert with it. What would they have to fear on their journey? Oh no. Aches suddenly laughed bitterly. "What is it?" The others looked at him. Aches laughed bitterly. "That was my last metallic life form, and it's already been destroyed. However, we've gone less than 10% on this journey. What should we do?" Aches looked at the surrounding people. "Who here has a metallic life form to lend me? I can buy it. Or perhaps I can pay for all of the expended divine jewels on the way." Everyone glanced at each other. Metallic life forms were fairly high-level items. Generally speaking, god-level fiends weren't able to buy them. Only prepared a few metallic life forms. The big bearded Bates chuckled, then waved his hand. Immediately, a metallic life form floated above the sea while transforming into a ship. "Aches, this metallic life form doesn't have any divine jewels within it. You can fill it up yourself." "Humph, he's an expert, yet he's so stingy," Bibi muttered. The big bearded Bates immediately turned to look at him. He couldn't help but stare at Bibi, then glanced at Linley. Only, he simply laughed, then sent through divine sense, "Hey, Linley, you are an expert of the 4 divine beasts clan. You are a 6-star fiend, right? Or are you a 7-star fiend? Why are you hiding your status? 6-star fiend? 7-star fiend? I'm actually a 1-star fiend." Linley sent back through divine sense. 1-star fiend. Bates rolled his eyes, then turned and flew towards the metallic life form. "Hey, let's hurry on our way. Prepare to head out." Only now did Linley return to his normal human form. "I told the truth but he didn't believe it." Linley shook his head, laughing to himself. And then, he couldn't help but sigh. The power of this Blackstone prison is indeed great. One part of it is the profound mysteries, but the other part is the special trick in exerting the profound mysteries. How could there be such a powerful trick? Linley didn't understand it. Just the special trick to using it could cause the upper limits of the gravity strength to multiple hundredfold. Most likely, even fusing another profound mystery wouldn't result in such an extravagant increase in power. Also, if I were to try and extrapolate it from scratch, most likely even after countless years, I still wouldn't be able to do so. Linley knew very well how hard it would be to develop this completely on his own. After all, who could have come up with using 108 rays of divine power? In addition, the 108 rays of divine power could be set up in countless configurations, and in most of them, they were very weak. But who would have imagined that under certain circumstances, they would produce such an effect? Before Linley learned this technique, only the juvenile amethyst beast could use it, and the juvenile amethyst beast was a divine beast. This technique was his innate, ultimate technique. When using it, the power was even more extravagant than Linley's execution. Rumble. The metallic life form pierced through the waves and advanced. Within the metallic life form, everyone was chatting, drinking wine, and laughing. Only, occasionally, some of them would intentionally glance at the others, pondering who was most likely to be that secretive, ultimate expert. Who was that expert? The green-haired man, Tam, was very curious. At the same time, with a rather excited gaze, he glanced at every single lucky survivor nearby. When his glance fell upon the silver-haired Wilburn, he shook his head slightly. If Wilburn was that expert, he most likely wouldn't have let his big brother die. Tam continued to look at them, one by one. Shouldn't be them. I know these ones. Tam then turned to look at the big bearded Bates, who stared at him. What are you looking at? Tam immediately laughed awkwardly. However, Tam knew that Bates trained in the laws of darkness and so wasn't that expert. Can it be them? Tam then glanced sideways at Linley's group, looking at each of them. Upon seeing Linley, he paused slightly. That shouldn't be right either. I saw him use that violet long sword. He seems to train in the elemental laws of the wind. Not him either. Although deities would train in more than one type of elemental law, when they engaged in battle, they would generally use their most powerful profound mystery. They had seen Linley utilize the elemental laws of the wind, and thus were certain that Linley was a wind-style deity. They didn't think about anything else. Linley. A voice rang out in his mind. Linley himself was at the side of the main hall. He was staring at the outside through the translucent metallic metal. Hearing this sound, he immediately replied with divine sense, Bates, why have you kept on chatting with me these past few days? Ever since that day when I revealed my true power, those kids have been very careful when chatting to me. It's really boring. The big bearded Bates said. Linley chuckled. Bates was someone who liked a lively atmosphere. Hey, look. That Wilburn kid has had a gloomy face the past few days. He seems to have been turned into a cripple. I didn't expect that short big brother of his was so important to him. Bates sent with divine sense yet again. Linley turned to look at Wilburn. This Wilburn was someone who also valued emotional relationships. If either Linley or Wharton had died, the other would probably be very heartbroken as well. Wharton. When I didn't let him come to the infernal realm, that was the right decision. Linley sighed in his heart. The many dangers of the infernal realm had been far greater than he had imagined. However, after 600 years of training in the Amethyst Mountains, he already was confident in his ability to protect himself. Regardless of whether it was a Foxia storm or those Knifeblade Island bandits, there wasn't much of a threat to him. Night. The sea wind blew drearily. Linley walked to the front of the ship. Although the metallic life form moved very quickly, Linley still walked very stably atop it. Huh. Linley looked towards the front of the ship in surprise. There's someone here. Tonight, aside from himself, there was actually someone else who had come to the front of the ship long ago. It was the silver-haired youth, Wilburn, who was leaning against the railings. Linley found to his astonishment. Wilburn's face was covered with tears. he was quietly staring into the distant seas. Who knew what he was thinking about? Wilburn. Linley sat down as well. Wilburn was startled. The tears on his face immediately dried and vanished, and he looked as cold and emotionless as ever. Thinking about your elder brother? Linley stared into the dark waves up ahead, but spoke very directly. When Wilburn heard this, the muscles on his face couldn't help but begin to tremble slightly. You had an elder brother, while I have a little brother. Linley let out a long sigh. His name is Wharton. However, this time, when I came to the infernal realm, I didn't let him accompany me, and in the blink of an eye, nearly 7 centuries have passed. I wonder how my little brother is doing. Nearly 700 years. It had only taken Linley, in the Yulon continent, a few decades to become a legend. In the infernal realm, he had spent nearly 7 centuries. 7 centuries, how many things could happen in such a period of time? Linley didn't know. How were his family members in the distant Yulon continent doing? My elder brother and I have been in the infernal realm for tens of thousands of years. Wilburn suddenly said. Linley was somewhat astonished. Wilburn was actually speaking. However, Linley still listened carefully. Given how heartbroken Wilburn was, he would indeed feel better after speaking out. My elder brother cared greatly about me. I still remember what it was like back in our homeland, that material plane. Wilburn's gaze drifted away as he returned to his memories. My elder brother was fairly honest and simple, while I was fairly arrogant. When I was young, because of my arrogance, I didn't have many friends. Only, my elder brother always cared about me. Afterwards, when I grew up, because of uncertain matter, a rupture appeared in the relationship between myself and my elder brother. Wilburn said bitterly, I killed my elder brother's fiancée. Linley was startled. Seeing the look on Wilburn's face, Linley could imagine that the situation back then must have been very complicated. Otherwise, given how much Wilburn cared about his brother, he wouldn't have done such a thing. From that day onward, my elder brother stopped meeting with me. As for myself, I became all the more arrogant. Because of some complicated matters, in my anger, I attacked the imperial palace and killed that detestable imperial crown prince, and even the emperor. That night, blood flowed into a river. Only, the power of the imperial palace was also very strong. They actually had 8 saints. I killed 5 of them, but was badly injured as well. I could see death coming for me. I had given up. After all, I had killed that imperial crown prince and that dogshit emperor. I was willing to die. Only, at that moment, my elder brother appeared. He saved me. Doing so meant that he was directly opposing the empire. Wilburn thought back to the events of that year. Wilburn shook his head and said bitterly, actually, back then, I had killed my future sister-in-law by accident. I had always felt guilty towards my elder brother. After killing the emperor, things became extremely troublesome. The elder chairman of the empire's Magus Association normally never got involved in matters, but after learning about this, he would definitely intervene. Wilburn sighed. Thus, we immediately fled, and then immediately found the planar overseer to go to the infernal realm. You came here as saints. Linley was shocked. Wilburn nodded. Only after arriving did we learn how dangerous it was. For saints in the infernal realm, this place is a nightmare. As he spoke, Wilburn turned silent, and his tears began to quietly cascade down again. Enough of that. Wilburn shook his head. After arriving here and experiencing the myriad dangers of the infernal realm, my elder brother and I understood that death could descend at any moment. I always hoped that if we were to die, I should be the first to die. I didn't want my elder brother to die, because in my entire life, he was the only true family and friend I have ever had. Linley glanced at Wilburn, then sighed to himself. However, Linley himself didn't feel too sad. He had experienced too much, here in the infernal realm. He had seen these things often. Those fiend trial participants, only a few dozen survived from 1,000 participants. For the people who had come to the infernal realm, how many of them were ordinary? Linley quietly sat there. At some point in time, Wilburn returned to the ship's cabin. Linley continued to sit there and stare at the waves of the sea. Tonight, only a tiny hint of a crescent of the violet moon remained. The entire Starmist sea seemed so dark and gloomy. The waves of the sea seemed like part of some incomparably enormous monster. The infernal realm is just like the Starmist sea. It is incomparably vast, and it devours one living creature after another. Only a truly powerful expert can remain here in the infernal realm and reach the pinnacle. Experts die, and only still more powerful experts can live. Linley stared into the boundless waters in front of him. For some reason, he felt his heart tremble slightly. The dark sea waters were vast and endless. Linley quietly sat there at the head of the boat, silently staring into the boundless sea, not a single hint of light in his eyes. Perhaps a long time passed, or perhaps just a moment later. Linley opened his eyes. In Linley's mind, illusory rays of divine power actually were forming. The rays of divine power formed into the black stone prison. The throbbing pulse of the world, gravitational space, essence of the earth, all sorts of profound mysteries were fusing into his soul. Dawn. Linley stood up as well. Staring at the blood sun, blurry behind those thin clouds, he had a hint of a smile on his face. Book 16, Starmist Sea, Chapter 10, Gunmontan. By the time Linley's group once again entered the metallic lifeform and headed further into the Starmist Sea, the second leader of Knifeblade Island, Dimon, traveled by himself deep into the bottom of the Starmist Sea, arriving within a nameless gorge. Humph. If it weren't for the fact that my elder brother died while I myself am not aware of where the Lord Commander lives, how could you have ended up getting a share of the glory? Staring at the gorge, Dimon felt hatred in his heart. And then, Dimon transformed into a shadow, easily passing through the nameless gorge. Within the gorge, there were some strange plant creatures at the bottom which were colorful to behold. Sometimes, a few oceanic magical beasts would even pop up at the bottom of the sea, but Dimon paid them no mind at all. Moments later, Dimon arrived at the gates to an underwater estate, located deep within the seabed gorge. There were 2 guards at each side of the gate. Halt! One of the guards immediately barked. Dimon laughed calmly. What, you don't even recognize me? As he spoke, Dimon moved somewhat closer. The 2 guards only now began to laugh, one of them saying, so it is second leader Lord Dimon of the Knifeblade Island. Although that was how they spoke, clearly, they didn't hold Dimon in much regard. Although their strength wasn't that great, their master was incredible. Go make a report to your master. I want to meet him. This is an important matter. Dimon said seriously. The 2 guards exchanged glances. It seems there really is an important matter. You can go make the report. The other guard said, you can just wait here. I'll go report this to our master. As he spoke, he entered the estate. After a long while, the guard came out. Lord Dimon, my master invites you. Please come with me. Dimon snorted inwardly. Just because you are somewhat stronger than me. This estate was extremely large, and it was very luxuriously decorated. Moments later, Dimon arrived within the main hall. The entire main hall was surrounded by sculptures and all sorts of paintings, which seemed to be telling an ancient story. Dimon, in his heart, knew, humph, these are all about the boastful affairs of himself, Gunmontan. So what if he's gone to purgatory? Such arrogance. Although he said this in his heart, Dimon was still rather envious. Dimon, where's your elder brother, Akats? A calm voice came out from the front. At the throne in the front of the main hall, a green-haired man whose forehead was covered with fish scales was seated, dressed in a green cloak with golden trimmings. The green-haired man's eyes glowed with green light, and his lips had a violet tint. He himself gave off an extremely devilish aura. He died. Dimon said sorrowfully. Akats died. The green-haired man immediately stood up in shock, then hurriedly asked, "How is that possible? Your elder brother was a 6-star fiend who trained in the elemental laws of water. His defense was the highest amongst our group. Who was capable of breaking his defense?" It was a black-haired man known as Lomio Bornazen. Just mentioning this name caused Dimon to feel terror. That day, the black-haired man's body had transformed into countless bolts of flashing lightning in the sky and caused something akin to a Foxia storm. And then, with but one blade blow, he had killed Dimon's elder brother. Lomio Bornazen. The green-haired man on the throne frowned. How come I've never heard of this person? What does he train in? He trains in the laws of lightning. Dimon said, this person came to our Knifeblade Island, then transformed into countless bolts of lightning and caused something identical to a Foxia storm, creating an enormous lightning vortex above our Knifeblade Island. It was too terrifying. There's actually such an expert. The green-haired man frowned. It seems I must go report this to the Lord Commander. And then, the green-haired man looked at Dimon. Dimon, can it be that you've simply come to tell me about this? The green-haired man had decided immediately in his heart that no matter what, he couldn't make an enemy out of this Lomio Bornazen. Someone capable of killing Akats in one blow was too terrifying. Lord Gonmondan. Dimon's face had a hint of a smile appear on it. I've come to bring you some good news. Speak. Gonmondan said. Although I've never met the Lord Commander, I've heard my elder brother say that the Lord Commander had always been collecting some divine beasts with extremely powerful innate abilities, or talents who have mutated souls. Dimon grinned as he spoke. Yes, there is such a thing. Gonmondan said calmly. This time, although our Knifeblade Island was attacked, while I was fleeing, in the Starmist Sea, I actually encountered a talented soul mutate. Dimon said hurriedly. He's definitely a soul mutate genius. I personally saw him use a combination of darkness-type divine power and light-type divine power. What? Shocked, Gonmondan immediately stood up. Soul mutates were extremely rare. In addition, geniuses like them were extremely terrifying in the future. For example, an expert who was a soul mutate, upon reaching the high god level, just based on the fact that he had fused two different types of divine power, would have the strength of his attack increased tenfold. When a person used fused divine power, even if he used the same type of profound mystery, the power would be 10 times that an ordinary person's. And in addition, only soul mutates were capable of fusing the profound mysteries of two different types of elemental laws. For example, Learmonth had later merged the profound mysteries of the elemental laws of fire as well as the way of destruction. When profound mysteries belong to different types of laws were fused, the power would be even greater by far than when two profound mysteries of the same type of law was fused. For example, if Linley's throbbing pulse of the world was capable of being fused with the dimensional attack profound mystery of the elemental laws of the wind, then the power would be comparable to fusing 3 profound mysteries of the same type of law. If he also fused 2 types of divine power when using the attack, the power would increase tenfold yet again. A soul mutate only had to fuse 2 different types of profound mysteries together, and his power would immediately become comparable to that of a 7-star fiend. However, ordinary high gods would have to fuse 4 profound mysteries to reach the 7-star fiend level. Where is he? Gonmondan said hurriedly. Dimon said helplessly, I didn't have the ability to bring him here. Gonmondan's face immediately changed, and he sneered, so even you, a 5-star fiend, were unable to bring him back. It seems the soul mutate has already reached the high god level. I expect he has already fused profound mysteries as well. What, do you want me to go die? Ganmondan knew very well his own limits, as a 6-star fiend. Although he was specialized in attacks, against a soul mutate, especially a soul mutate at the height of his power, he had no confidence. Soul mutates were monstrously powerful. 2 different types of divine power, when fused, would make the power of even an ordinary profound mystery increase tenfold. If they were able to fuse 3 different types of profound power, the strength would increase 100-fold. If they were able to fuse 4, the power would continue to compound. However, the more types of divine power one trained in, the lower the chances one would have of having a soul mutation. For example, a person capable of using 3 types of divine power, even if he underwent a soul mutation, would have nearly a 100% chance of dying during the process. In the entire history of the infernal realm, there had only been an extremely infinitesimally small number of soul mutates. Virtually all of the successful ones fused 2 types of divine power to become soul mutates. For example, when Oliver's soul had mutated, he had been in a coma for months. In the countless years the infernal realm had existed, only a single person had fused 3 types of divine power. As for having 4 different types of divine power and yet still fusing them, despite the passage of countless years, not a single such person had appeared in the countless planes of the universe. Normally speaking, when people were discussing soul mutates, they referred to people who fused 2 different types of divine power. For example, Linley had earth, wind, and fire type divine power. Even if he were to undergo a soul mutation, his chance of death would be almost 100%. After all, in the countless years the infernal realm had existed, this sort of genius had only appeared once. Dimon, it's not too likely that one is going to be able to control that sort of mighty soul mutate. Ganmondan laughed coldly. No. That soul mutate is only a god. Dimon said hurriedly. Only a god. Ganmondan was overjoyed. The weaker the target was, the easier to control. Huh. Ganmondan suddenly frowned. Just a god. How is it that we're unable to bring him back? Dimon explained, Lord Ganmondan, the soul mutate is only a god, but, he is currently within a squad which has 2 experts. Experts? How is their strength? Ganmondan asked hurriedly. One of them trains in the elemental laws of darkness. By my calculations, he should have the power of a 5-star fiend, perhaps closing on that of a 6-star fiend. As I saw it, he specializes in speed, assassination, and hiding his aura. Dimon said disdainfully. Ganmondan laughed calmly. He wouldn't even care about an ordinary 6-star fiend. And the other? Ganmondan pursued. Dimon looked rather awkward. Actually, I didn't discover that other person either. However, he should be hidden in their group. In terms of power, I can't say. Dimon frowned. Explain in detail what the situation was like. Dimon immediately explained in detail. After hearing Dimon's explanation, Ganmondan nodded slightly. The attack of hundreds of gods actually managed to cause the Black Stone Castle to tremble. It seems its defense isn't that powerful, and it also covers a fairly small area. Based on my calculations, at most this person is a 6-star fiend. Ganmondan had already calculated this out. The opponent wasn't too much of a threat. I can break through that Black Stone Castle with one sword blow. Ganmondan laughed calmly. Dimon advised, Milord, how about we first go inform the Lord Commander, that way, there won't be any chance of failure. A mere 6-star fiend? How can the Lord Commander personally get involved for this? Ganmondan laughed coldly. This sort of affair, I alone can handle easily. Ganmondan was very confident. He trained in the elemental laws of the wind, and he specialized in 2 things, attacking and fleeing. Even against a 7-star fiend, he was confident in his ability to flee. For a battle like this, it was better to first prepare for defeat than to prepare for victory. Only then would one not have to worry about any problems. Do you know where that squad is? Gunmontan looked at him. Dimon smiled. Milord, don't worry. I've made the arrangements long ago. In addition, it's only been less than half a month. Even if something happens, finding them will be easy. After all, this is our turf. Excellent. Gunmontan nodded in satisfaction. Don't worry. Once I collect that soul mutate and offer him to the commander, I will definitely report your contributions to the Lord Commander as well. Thank you, milord. Dimon said hurriedly. But in his heart, Dimon was still furious. If he had known how to go find the commander, would he have come to report all of this to Gunmontan? If he had enough power to seize Olivier, he wouldn't need to let Gunmontan take the credit either. The sea waves rolled on. Linley and Bibi were seated together at the end of the ship. Boss, why have you always been staring at the sea lately? Bibi asked, puzzled. Linley chuckled, first setting up his Godrealm to block out sound, and then explained, Bibi, recently, I feel as though there are some problems with my Blackstone prison. I know that the answer lies within this vast sea. The waters of the sea flow on casually and contain unfathomable transformations. My Blackstone prison is too rigid. Although it is able to distort and reform, that expends divine power. Also, it isn't able to easily deflect outside power. Bibi just listened. He couldn't help but stare at Linley. Why are you staring at me? Linley laughed as he looked at Bibi. Boss, didn't you say that you've already fused 3 types of profound mysteries? Bibi said hurriedly. During the past few days when Linley had been staring at the sea, he had gained a sudden insight and had managed to completely and perfectly fuse the essence of the earth, throbbing pulse of the world, and the gravitational space, these 3 great profound mysteries. The power of his Blackstone prison had once more increased. By now, even against a 6-star fiend, Linley had confidence in winning. So what if I have? Linley sighed. The Blackstone prison is still insufficiently perfected. Actually, if I were able to infuse the profound mysteries of vitality of the laws of the earth with the other 3, it would perfectly balance and strengthen the power of my Blackstone prison. By that time, the Blackstone prison would regrow and regenerate without end. Even a 7-star fiend would find it hard to break it. Only, fusing 4 types of profound mysteries is too hard. In addition, vitality should be a fairly unique type of profound mystery in the laws of the earth. The vast earth was deep and gave birth to countless life forms, and thus it possessed profound vitality. Linley knew a few special details regarding the profound truths of vitality, only, Linley had yet to be able to gain a basic understanding of it. Boss, don't be too greedy. Bibi pursed his lips and said. You've fused 3 types of profound mysteries. Linley laughed. Actually, this didn't have anything to do with greed. Linley simply pursued perfection and wanted to continuously improve himself. Huh. Right at this moment, Linley was suddenly shocked. Below. Bang. The metallic creature, which had been advancing at high speed, once more exploded, and everyone within it now hovered in mid-air, their faces covered with puzzlement. In particular, the big bearded Bates. He roared angrily, Mother of Asterisker. This metallic life form was mine. Linley carefully stared at the surface of the sea. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 figures broke through the surface of the sea, leaping into mid-air. One of them was a grim-looking green-haired man who was dressed in a green cloak with gold trimmings, and who had fish scales over his forehead. The person by his side was a familiar figure to Linley's group. It was the second leader of Knifeblade Island. Dimon. Book 16, Starmist Sea, Chapter 11, So it was him. The waves of the sea rolled about. The green-haired Gunmontan and the second leader Dimon both stood there in mid-air, staring calmly at Linley's group. That's the leader of the Knifeblade Island group. The employer, Aches, immediately recognized Dimon. The others recognized him as well, and as they did, their hearts sank. As the second leader of Knifeblade Island, Dimon's power was obvious. And yet, right now, Dimon was seemingly following behind that green-haired man, as though he were a subordinate. "Boss, trouble's coming," BB sent through divine sense. "No rush. Let's wait and see." Linley watched Gunmontin calmly. At his current level of power, Linley was more than capable of fighting against most 6-star fiends. More importantly, Linley had that Sovereign's might. If he used Sovereign's might to attack, even a 7-star fiend was nothing to fear. "Hey, leader of Knifeblade Island, what's your name? I forgot. But you fled last time, fellow. Why are you back this time?" The big bearded Bates barked unhappily. "What, last time, when we spared your life, you didn't feel gratitude, but instead came back and actually brought someone else over. Fine then, today, we'll just deal with both of you." Gunmontin and Dimon didn't say a word. Gunmontin's flashing green eyes swept past Linley's group. He carefully inspected every single person to see who was the legendary hidden expert. As he looked, Gunmontin couldn't help but frown. Aside from those 2 high gods, it seems there isn't a third high god. During the last battle, Boff had lost a high god clone and was now just a god. The entire squad only had 2 high gods. One was Delia, and the others was Bates. The situation isn't good. Gunmontin was an expert who had entered purgatory before. Naturally, he wouldn't drop his guard. This hidden expert can actually escape even my notice. It seems his power isn't any lower than mine. At the very least, his ability in hiding his aura is quite powerful. Gunmontin thought rapidly, then came to a decision. "Dimon, the soul mutate you spoke of. Which one is it?" Gunmontin sent through a divine message to Dimon. The reason he had brought Dimon was solely to have him point out the soul mutate. Dimon looked towards Olivier while saying through divine sense, "Lord Gunmontin, it's that man with the long grey cloak who has hair that is black streaked with white." Gunmontin's gaze immediately rested upon Olivier, a crafty look flashing through his eyes. Linley's group was puzzled. The 2 had destroyed their metallic life form, but hadn't said a single word. What were they intending, exactly? "You, Greenie. Why are the 2 of you blocking our path? If you want to say something, hurry up. We don't have time to waste with you." BB, wearing his straw hat, wasn't afraid at all, and he loudly shouted towards Gunmontin. Gunmontin began to laugh. "Ha ha!" Gunmontin emitted an ear-piercing laughter, the sound of it bizarrely causing the area within hundreds of meters to echo, while outside of this area, no sound could be heard at all. The sound of the laughter bored directly into the skulls of Linley's group. This is the profound truths of sound of the elemental laws of the wind. Linley immediately recognized it. The profound truths of sound fused the sound waves and music profound mysteries. Linley had already completely fused them. This Gunmontin actually used this to ambush them, but clearly, the power of Gunmontin's laughter wasn't too great. How painful! Aches, Tam, and the others all held their heads. As for Linley, BB, Delia, and Olivier, they weren't as bad off. Gunmontin glanced at the people who his laughter hadn't affected, then chuckled. "Everyone, I am Gunmontin. Today, I have only come to take a person away. I don't actually want to harm the rest, and I hope you won't block me either." "Take someone away?" Linley was puzzled. Who in our group is worth this sort of high-level figure coming out? For Gunmontin to be capable of having Dimon by his side like a manservant meant that his power was definitely greater than Dimon's, most likely at a 6-star fiend level or perhaps even a 7-star fiend level. "Take someone away?" "Who?" BB asked. "Right. Who are you taking away?" Aches asked as well. This group all felt nervous, afraid that they would be selected. Gunmontin smiled as he said, "The person I am taking away is him." As he spoke, he reached out with his right hand and pointed towards Olivier. Instantly, everyone turned to look at Olivier. Me. Oliver's face changed, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He had only been in the infernal realm for a few hundred years and he hadn't offended any powerful foes. Why would they take him away? Olivier. Bibi called out in surprise. Linley and Delia both began to frown, while Aix, Tam, and the other gods let out sighs of relief. Why is this person taking Olivier away? Linley's thoughts flashed through his mind. Olivier had spent the vast majority of his years in the infernal realm in the Amethyst Mountains with Linley. He had never encountered any ultimate experts. The only thing special about Olivier was his soul mutation. Could it be that the reason he wants to take Olivier away is related to the fact that Olivier is a soul mutate? Linley couldn't help but guess this. Hey, why do you want to take away Olivier? Olivier is one of us. You want to take him away just because you say so? Absolutely no way. The big bearded Bates snorted. Bates' words caused Linley, Bibi, and the others to feel joy. This Bates is a fine fellow, Linley said to himself. Gonmondan laughed loudly. Oh, so his name is Olivier. I can tell you plainly, Gonmondan swept Linley's group with his gaze, his eyes slowly turning cold. Today, Olivier must leave with me. If anyone wants to stop me, there will only be one result, death. Gonmondan's green glowing eyes, violet lips, and cold voice caused everyone to feel their hearts tremble. He's using the profound truths of sound yet again. Linley said to himself. This person can utilize the elemental laws of the wind quite freely. Gonmondan, seeing that the gods seemed to be rather in dread of him, then immediately began to smile again. But of course, if you don't block my path, I naturally won't kill you. Right now, I'll give you all a chance. Aside from Olivier, the others can all leave safely. Everyone can leave now. Leave. The god-level fiends all hesitated. I'll count to 10. If by then there are people still remaining, that means they are my enemies. The result will be, Gonmondan suddenly made a serpent-shaped longsword which gleamed with green light appear in his hands. He casually waved the sword, which blurred while causing the world to be filled with a beautiful sound. Slash. Space itself had a large crevice split open within it, while at the same time, the sword blur carried what seemed like countless wind blades, charging downwards towards the sea like thousands of soldiers in an army. Boom! The sea rumbled, and instantly, the water beneath that point for hundreds of meters around turned into a massive hole that was dozens of meters deep. Moments later, the surrounding water filled the gap. And immediately a series of waves could be heard. Aix, Tam, Wilburn, and the other gods all had very ugly looks on their faces. Linley, Bates, and the others all had solemn looks on their faces. The infernal realm's planar walls were very stable. To slash open a crevice within the infernal realm was proof of having displayed terrifying power. 1. Gonmondan smiled as he spoke. 2. 3. Gonmondan's counting speed was unhurried, and his voice wasn't loud, but hammered down upon the hearts of every single fiend present. Those god-level fiends glanced at each other, all hesitating. Everyone, no need to waste your lives for me, Olivier said bitterly. Immediately, the employer, Aix, was the first to turn towards Olivier and say apologetically, "Forgive me." As he spoke, he immediately flew away. As Aix left, immediately the other gods all left as well. By the time Gonmondan counted to 10, Boff and Wilburn flew away as well. They were all god-level fiends, of no use at all. 9. Gonmondan's gaze once more swept the 5 remaining figures. Everyone, if you don't leave now, you won't have the chance later. But the 5 didn't pay him any mind at all. 10. Gonmondan had counted to 10, but 5 were still remaining. They were Linley, Delia, Bibi, Olivier, and Bates. As for Aix, Tam, Wilburn, and the other 7, they had all flown far away. From a distance of 3 kilometers, they stared towards this scene. Aix said softly, "Everyone, don't be worried. I expect that the mysterious expert who used the Blackstone prison last time should be one of those 3, Linley, Beebe, or Olivier. When that expert attacks, perhaps he will be able to defeat Gonmondon." The other 6 felt their hearts firm up. In the infernal realm, very few people would choose to throw their lives away. Their choices were correct. Who knows which one of them is the expert? Wilburn said softly. "I hope he can defeat Gonmondon." Boff said as well. Right at this moment, above the boundless Starmist sea, Linley's group of 5 was hovering above the surface of the sea, standing opposite from Dimon and Gonmondon. After counting to 10, Gonmondon was already feeling extremely unhappy. Prior to this, he had used the profound truths of sound through his laughter to test Linley's group. As early as then, he had expected that the hidden expert should have been one of the people in front of him, but who would have imagined that none of these people left? He had counted from 1 to 10, but his ploy of his had no effect at all. Whether or not those 7 gods left had no effect on him at all. He, Gonmondon, wanted to get the hidden expert to leave. If he could avoid battle, he would. After all, he had no way to discover who the opponent was. Gonmondon was even wondering, could this hidden expert be a 7-star fiend? Could it be that when resisting the forces of Knifeblade Island, he was hiding his true power? Humph. Who cares what you are? If you hide yourself like a coward, I imagine you can't be too strong. Gonmondon wielded his green serpentine longsword, grinning. I didn't expect the 4 of you are really chivalrous. You are actually willing to die for Olivier. Since that's the case, I'll oblige you. Gonmondon laughed as he looked at Bates. Your power isn't bad. The first one I'll deal with is you. Bates' face changed slightly. Linley, if you don't act, then I'm going to leave. Bates hurriedly sent with divine sense. I'm not a match for that old fellow. Gonmondon. A voice rang out, and a figure suddenly appeared in front of Bates. His entire body was covered with azure golden draconic scales. Beneath the dazzling light of the violet sun, he was very eye-catching. Those 2 dark golden eyes stared at Gonmondon. It was the transformed Linley. Gonmondon, today, you'd best leave. I don't want to fight you. Linley said. Linley wasn't completely certain of his ability to win this battle, but if he had to, he would use the sovereign's might. However, Linley was rather unwilling to. So it was you. Gonmondon was shocked. He stared at Linley in surprise, and then began to laugh loudly. I didn't expect that a core member of the 4 Divine Beasts clan was hidden in your group. I am Gonmondon. Might I ask who you are? Linley. Linley said calmly and directly. Ha ha, Linley. Gonmondon laughed loudly as he spoke. Today, I've come here not for myself, but for my Lord Commander. Commander? Linley was stunned. He couldn't help but think back to what the juvenile amethyst beast he had met back in the Amethyst Mountains had said. Back then, that juvenile amethyst beast had said that he was a commander in Purgatory. A commander of Purgatory was a position which Linley had yet to fully understand. But given the power of the juvenile amethyst beast, Linley could guess. As a member of the 4 Divine Beasts clan, I imagine you wouldn't want to ruin the affairs of my Lord Commander. Gonmondon laughed calmly as he spoke. Gonmondon was very self-confident. Even the clan leader of the 4 Divine Beasts clan most likely wouldn't offend his Lord Commander. Gonmondon laughed as he looked at Linley. Gonmondon, I'd like to ask you to leave. Linley said calmly. Book 16, Starmist Sea, Chapter 12, A Great Battle. It's Linley. From afar, the onlookers, including Aix and the other gods, were all shocked. They hadn't expected that the hidden expert was Linley. It was actually him. Wilburn stared at the distant, dragon-formed Linley. For now, let us ignore the shock of Aches and the rest of the seven. Gunmontan, hearing Linley's words, couldn't help but feel a surge of rage. Glancing sideways at Linley, he began to laugh from rage. Oh, Linley, what? You don't even care about my commander at all? What audacity! Dimon, the second leader of Knifeblade Island, could tell that the situation was turning bad. He immediately retreated. I can't suffer the backlash from a battle between these two. It isn't audacity. Linley looked at Gunmontan. Gunmontan, I definitely will not permit you to take Olivier away. Although I don't wish to fight you, if you truly insist on forcing him to leave, then I will be forced to. Humph. Gunmontan felt yet another surge of rage. He had already given Linley a great deal of face by saying so much. Ha ha, Gunmontan continued to laugh as his rage built up. If that's the case, then I shall. As he spoke, Gunmontan suddenly lifted up the green serpentine longsword in his hand and filled it with wind-style divine power. The entire sword began to tremble and emit a clear ringing sound of wind chimes. The sword hymn reverberated within 100 meters. Beneath Linley's feet, rays of earth-type divine power radiated out as well, merging into the surface of the sea below. With the black stone in his sea of consciousness as the core, 108 rays of earth-type divine power began to move in accordance with a pattern. The area within 300 meters began to tremble as countless amounts of earth-type divine power coalesced. Gunmontan, suffering this astonishing gravitational pull, found to his astonishment that his body was beginning to sink down. At the same time, a large amount of earth elemental essence and divine power took shape. In the blink of an eye, an enormous black stone prison appeared, floating on the surface of the water. Although Dimon had retreated into the distance early on, Gunmontan and Linley were both now already trapped within that black stone prison. Linley's ultimate attack, formed from three fused profound mysteries of the laws of the earth and with the black stone at the nucleus, black stone prison. The scope is larger than last time. Dimon sucked in a cold breath. It seems last time, this Linley really was hiding his true power. But how could he know that in reality, during this period of time, Linley just so happened to break through a bottleneck and completely perfect his fusion of those three profound mysteries. Within the Blackstone prison was utter darkness. The only light came from the faint earthen yellow glow coming off those pitch-black walls. As a high god expert, even though it was pitch black, Gunmontan could still see clearly. What a terrifying gravity! Gunmontan's face changed greatly. And then, Gunmontan gnashed his teeth, summoning the divine power in his body. With regards to flying speed, as an expert in the elemental laws of the wind, Gunmontan was quite proficient. The better one's flying ability was, the better one was able to resist powerful gravity. Humph. Gunmontan's body finally, barely left the surface of the ground. He hovered into the air. Not bad. In my Blackstone prison, you are actually barely able to fly. A sound of praise rang out. A figure, with a whoosh, appeared within Gunmontan's line of vision. It was the dragon-formed Linley. Linley had already been prepared for Gunmontan being able to just barely resist the gravity. Gunmontan was an expert in flying, and his power was that of a 6-star fiend or a 7-star fiend. Him being capable of this was in line with Linley's expectations. Gunmontan immediately landed. I truly am in admiration of you, to reach such a level in your training of the laws of the earth. Gunmontan laughed as he spoke, but at the same time, his right fist suddenly struck out with the green serpentine longsword in his hand. His target, the floor of the Blackstone prison beneath his feet. Linley's face changed, and he launched himself forward, immediately charging towards Gunmontan, an adamantine heavy sword suddenly appearing in his hand. Slash! An astonishing crack in space appeared, and the floor of the Blackstone prison was cut open as well. Gunmontan's body immediately sank down as he fled through the giant crack beneath him. I didn't imagine that he actually escaped. Linley willed the large black stone prison to vanish. Rumble, the waves of the Starmist sea rolled on and roared. Gunmondan hovered there in mid-air as him and Linley stared at each other. I need to modify and improve the Blackstone prison. After that last experience, Linley now had an idea as to a flaw of the original Blackstone prison. The Blackstone prison had a circumference of roughly 300 meters and had many corridors and rooms and whatnot. If Gunmondan were to chop open a wall next to him, even if he broke through, he would find yet another wall. However, Gunmondan had directly struck down at the floor beneath his feet. The Blackstone prison was only so large. It was a single-story edifice. By chopping down into the ground, Gunmondan had managed to escape. In the future, not only must the scope of the Blackstone prison be large, it also needs to have 9 levels, with the opponent trapped in the 5th floor. That way, even if he breaks through the floor, he will still have 4 more levels to go. Linley said to himself. Olivier, Bibi, Delia, Bates, Dimon, and the distant onlookers all held their breaths as they watched. None of them knew if Gunmondan was stronger, or if Linley was stronger. How difficult to deal with. Gunmondan's eyes narrowed. With a whoosh sound, within 1,000 meters, over 1,000 Gunmondans appeared, each one of them having a smile on his face. Ha ha, Linley, with so many doppelgangers, can you possibly find my true body? As he spoke, the 1,000 Gunmondans began to fly through the air with a whooshing sound. Linley didn't move at all. His Earth-style divine power, however, radiated out to 300 meters, naturally including the nearby Delia, Bibi, and Olivier. The power of this gravitational pull didn't have much of a difference compared with the Blackstone prison, only, it didn't have any prison walls to block movement. Gravitational space. Of the 1,000+ Gunmondans, whenever some of them flew into the gravitational space, they would immediately begin to sink down, unable to resist the powerful pull of gravity. Gunmondan, just give up. There's no way you'll be able to take Olivier away. Linley said clearly. Your doppelgangers aren't able to resist the power of my gravitational space. Only your true body is just barely able to do so. Indeed. Those doppelgangers all sank into the sea, with only the true Gunmondan just barely able to stay aloft. Linley, I have never seen a gravitational pull so powerful as yours in this gravitational space. Gunmondan said, and then he immediately flew backwards, outside of the range of Linley's gravitational space. Linley didn't try to block him either, instead just watching. Linley actually hoped that this Gunmondan would leave. Whoosh! Gunmondan suddenly flew into the sky, into the thin fog above the sea. Immediately, lightning began to strike towards Gunmondan. Linley frowned. Why did he fly into the fog? Bibi raised his head as well. Does this Gunmondan have some mental problems? He wants to let the lightning strike him. The power of the lightning within the fog of the Starmist sea increased as one flew higher. Gunmondan had already flown to a height which was roughly his maximum. That sort of lightning was only capable of inflicting some mild wounds. Swoosh! Gunmondan flew in a straight line. It must be understood that the farther one was from the gravitational pull area, the weaker the gravity would be. Gunmondan had flown so high that the gravitational space set up at the surface of the sea, at the height he was in, didn't pose much of an effect at all. Gunmondan flew directly towards the air above Linley's head. And then, he dropped down in a straight line. Gravity pulled downwards, and so Gunmondan's downward speed reached a new height. You want to play like this? Linley laughed calmly. In the area around them, the constantly fluctuating rays of divine power suddenly returned to Linley's body. Swirling around it. At the same time, with Linley at the center, a roughly 100-meter, enormous sphere took shape, forming a unique, sphere-shaped repulsive force region. Gunmondan had been full of confidence, but as soon as he entered the repulsive sphere, Ganmondan immediately sensed a surge of powerful repulsive force impacting his entire body. He had been dropping at high speed, but now, his speed virtually slowed down to nothing. Sensing this sort of repulsive strength, Ganmondan was so shocked the look on his face changed. How could a gravitational space be like this? Ganmondan had never heard of a gravitational space actually possessing repulsive power. Although shocked, Ganmondan still frantically resisted that repulsive power and forced himself to descend, while at the same time brandishing out the green serpentine longsword in his hand. The longsword was covered by a layer of indistinct green illusions and also rang out with that sound of wind chimes. The sword shadow, which seemed slow but was actually fast, slashed through the sky, and wherever it passed, space itself split apart. A ray of flashing green light from his illusory sword instantly pierced through the heavens and appeared in front of Linley's eyes. Blood drop sword. Ganmondan's face was savage as he unleashed his most powerful sword attack. His body was suffering the effects of the repulsive force, but his sword energy attack wasn't impacted much. So fast. Linley hurriedly worked hard to dodge. But one's body movement speed was indeed inferior to the speed of that sword light. Clang. The sword light viciously struck Linley's draconic scale-clad left shoulder. With a clear ringing sound, Linley's draconic scales on his left shoulder actually shattered, with 3 scales breaking open and hints of blood oozing out. What? Ganmondan stared, slack-jawed. His most powerful material attack had actually only caused the opponent to bleed slightly. Linley glanced at his arm, his gaze turning cold. He immediately wielded the adamantine heavy sword, moving towards Ganmondan at high speed like a bolt of lightning. Ganmondan, astonished and frightened by that scene, immediately flew back and retreated. Given the repulsive force, his fleeing speed was quite fast. Gravitational force. Linley wielded, and immediately, that 100-meter sphere-shaped space's repulsive force suddenly transformed into attractive force. In addition, the range changed from 100 meters to 200 meters. Ganmondan was trapped within this indistinct sphere-shaped region. The powerful gravity drew Ganmondan closer and closer to Linley. What level of combatant is this Linley? My most powerful attack actually only broke a few draconic scales. Ganmondan frantically tried to throw off the power of the gravity and escape, but the gravity was too strong. Although he was able to just barely resist it, his flying speed was slow. More importantly, Linley's speed was unaffected, and he immediately caught up. Die. Linley's adamantine heavy sword in his hand clapped down in a light, breezy manner, while at the same time, an illusory, earthen yellow sword shadow flew out from the adamantine heavy sword, striking directly into Ganmondan's body. Laws of the Earth, Void Wave Sword. Ganmondan was shocked, but under this astonishing gravity, his speed was too slow. How can this gravity be so monstrously strong? Even Azuras shouldn't be capable of this. Can it be that he is a hidden Azura level combatant? Everyone had their own specialty, and there were some people who specialized in gravity. But gravity so powerful that Ganmondan, a 6-star fiend, was only barely able to resist it was truly too extravagant. Harg. Ganmondan launched a backhand sword blow, and that indistinct faint green sword shadow shot out as well. The light green sword shadow and the light earthen yellow sword shadow collided. After a momentary stalemate, the light yellow sword shadow collapsed, and the remaining amount of the light green sword shadow immediately charged towards Linley. Linley was too close to Ganmondan, and wasn't able to dodge at all. The light green sword shadow immediately shot into Linley's body. Huh! Linley's body shuddered slightly. Haha, his soul attack is actually weaker than mine. Ganmondan was overjoyed. Linley's gravitational space and his terrifying defense had scared Ganmondan out of his wits. Unexpectedly, his attack, which he had only wanted to use to block Linley's, had actually easily broken through Linley's soul attack. Haha, go die. Ganmondan actually released 2 more sword blows downwards. Generally speaking, if a person's soul attack was strong, his soul defense would also be strong. Seeing how weak Linley's soul attack was, he knew that Linley's soul defense couldn't be too powerful either. Although Ganmonden's accomplishments in soul attacks was inferior to that of his accomplishments in physical attacks, his soul attacks still outstripped Linley's. The two light green sword shadows shot towards Linley at high speed. Linley didn't have time to dodge at all. And Linley didn't dodge. Haha, Linley laughed loudly, flying at high speed towards Ganmonden, ignoring those two light green sword shadows which flew into his body. He immediately rushed straight in front of Ganmonden. Bang! He viciously lashed Ganmonden with a kick to his chest. Crunch! Ganmonden was knocked flying, and he spewed out a mouthful of blood. But after flying not too far away, due to the great power of the gravitational sphere, he was once more drawn closer to Linley. Ganmonden's face changed greatly. This Linley, he suffered 2 hits of my soul attack, but he didn't feel anything. Ganmonden wasn't too specialized in soul attacks, and he also was being drawn closer once more due to the gravitational sphere. Here comes another one. Linley immediately drew closer to Ganmonden once more. Ah! Ganmonden howled loudly, and suddenly, over 1,000 Ganmondens appeared around him. Explode! Ganmonden howled furiously. Boom! The 1,000 Ganmondens all blew apart.